Call to order the Hanover Selectboard meeting for March 16, 2026, starting at 6 p.m. because we have a very full agenda. And let's move straight into the trustee of the trust funds annual presentation. We're delighted to have the three of you. Thank you, Betsy, Kari, and John. If you wouldn't mind sitting at the table, I may have to drag up another chair. Sorry about that. But that would be wonderful. Thank you for your coming tonight. Thank you for your service as trustees. Thank you for your presentation, which we've received. Do you want to make any initial comments?
Well, I was going to start with introductions for people who are watching. So I'm Kari Asmus, and I've served as chair of the trustees since last June. And we've had a busy year, but I would like, some of these are kind of familiar faces, but I would like for them to introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Betsy McLean. I'm the newest elected trustee of trust funds, but used to work for the town, so know them from the other side. So,
John Stebbins. I'm still in my first term. Second year. I've been enjoying it.
Thank you, John.
Yes,
Probably because Carrie does all the work. Heavy lifting.
but I have to say, so in the past, this group used to be dominated by investment professionals. And at this point, we don't, have one. So it's kind of interesting, though, the different skill sets that we have are rather diverse. So it's worked out well. And I guess the first thing we wanted to do was thank you for having us tonight. We are actually, one of our reporting requirements is to report to the select board. So you're letting us check off that box, but even more so, we wanted to thank Joanna Whitcomb for being our liaison to the select board. She's made it to many meetings. I think Jarrett stepped in once, and Carrie, you also stepped in. We've had a lot of support from staff. Ellen Bullion, Tom Grantham isn't here tonight, but if you visit the trustees webpage, you'll see that our minutes are all up to date, and that is so much thanks to Tom. And Rob has also attended a couple of our key discussions. So we just really appreciate everybody paying attention to what we're doing, because it is important. I wanted to first go over, and see Rob right now is doing the magic of projecting our presentation. It is somewhat warmed over, but somewhat different than last year's. We wanted to go over briefly our roles and responsibilities, review the current fund balances and the types of investments, and then focus on Brissette, the calendar year investment performance, which I think a number of people might be interested in. Current market value compared to inflation adjusted book value, and then finally some recommendations. I know that Sally Boyle, who was here last year, did an excellent job of going through the roles and responsibilities, and you all were here, so I think I can do kind of a light touch on that one. But I guess I don't know. Did you have any questions, or yes?
Yes, can you make it just a little bigger? I think you can, if you go view and zoom, but then you have to slide the slider back over again. Works. I think it's different because you're on the same.
The next pages maybe are less text dense. But basically some of the things that I guess I did want to hit on is that we've talked to some people. We understand that there's some misunderstandings about how we're overseeing or not overseeing. Somebody mentioned that we just sit at our meetings and have no oversight. But I wanted to let everybody know that in fact, we do have to report to the Department of Revenue Administration. And then we also report to the Department of Justice Charitable Trust Unit. So that we definitely feel that we have a lot of requirements that we need to follow, whether it's investments or making decisions about what trust funds can be used for, or the reporting. It really just goes on and on. And so that was kind of one of the things that I wanted to highlight about our responsibilities. I don't know, Betsy or John, if other things have struck you in your first year or your second year of what we need to focus on.
No, I think it's just important that a lot of the public might not understand that there is this independently elected body, the trustees of trustees, that are responsible for certain funds. And so we have a different kind of oversight over those funds and perhaps a different relationship with them than the select board do. And so it's a very symbiotic relationship between the two boards, but the actual purpose of why we might be looking at a fund might diverge here and there. And so to the extent that we can make that road nice and smooth, that's obviously to the benefit of both of us.
Yeah, I don't have, not much more to add, except I think somewhat Carrie did note, which is how much we are under both statutorily and even administratively with the state boards, and how much interaction that actually involves on the work. But there's quite a bit of that, and I think this board probably knows, but maybe the public isn't aware of how much that governs our processes and decision-making is what we do.
So going on to the next page, this is our report, and this has been updated to December 31st. When you get your town report at town meeting, that will just be from June 30th. But at the top, what I've done is put all the expendable reserve funds. They're mostly capital reserve funds, but some of them have a slightly different status. But these are all invested in New Hampshire PDIP. And I know we get into a lot of acronyms around town hall, but that stands for New Hampshire Public Deposit Investment Pool. And that is an organization that has been active in New Hampshire since 1993. It's under statutory authority. That means that the general court could take away that authority, and then we could lose PDIP, as they've sometimes been discussing recently. But this organization really gives all New Hampshire school districts and municipalities opportunity to have their funds secure, liquid, and to share the efficiencies of an investment pool. And then, as you can see, at the end of the calendar year, the subtotal of these funds was 10.4 million. But just to give you an idea how fluid things are, in our January meeting, we approved about $600,000 worth of expenditures from the reserve fund. So that brought it down to 9.8 million. And then we were looking at what was authorized at last year's town meeting that hasn't come through yet. And that's another 1.6, 1.7 million. So really, you see the total on the statement as being 10.4 million. It's actually closer to 7.1. And that is one of the things that actually we've been working with Ellen to tighten up, to give you the feedback of exactly what the working capital is, so that you can make better decisions when you're thinking about how much money to put in on any, in any given year, or, what amount is actually there. I wanted to point out that if we could just go down a little bit, I did separate out, there's a Etna Town Library Reserve Fund, and then two that are cemetery related. And those are not things that you have control over. Those would be under the library trustees as well as cemetery trustees. And we will be talking to them later. The next group of funds are the perpetual funds. Let's see, what do I want to say about them? We have been working with Muskoma Wealth Management since 2020. Our investment guidelines say that we need to review that relationship every 7 years, and that will be coming up in 2027. Trying to think, what else do I want to say about these? they're invested for total returns. And then the common funds, those actually are about 200, more than 200 different little funds. Some of them are cemetery, some of them are school, some of them are library. But again, we're trying to take advantage of efficiencies in that common fund. We cannot put any money, any funds in there that were raised with public monies. Public and private monies cannot be commingled. And then we have Brissett and Bridgman in their own separate funds because they're obviously significant enough that we really want to be able to keep an eye on them. I don't know, any other things about that we're trying to think about as we approach?
Well, again, more for the public, but again, the difference between expendable and the perpetual funds, the expendable, the full amount obviously is available for spending. The perpetual funds is an endowment fund, but more than just preserving the principal that was given to us, we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we grow that principal so that the future earnings power of that fund keeps with inflation. And so there's more than just making sure that the $100 cemetery gift that was given in 1800 is still $100. We want that to grow so that it spins off of enough income.
Any,
Can I ask,
Yeah.
where is the Bridgman fund in here?
so it, because that's a school district fund,
Yeah.
and I typically didn't put school district stuff up here, but it would be right under the Lou and Ann Brissett Memorial Endowment Fund. It is very similar to that.
Is it about the same amount of money or is it?
No, it is less. It's, I think in
I can't
the,
remember.
yeah, yeah, I don't have it. Oh, you would.
Yeah, it'll be in our annual report.
Yeah.
What is it, John?
2.3 at the moment.
Okay,
The end,
thank you.
that was the end of last June.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks, John.
so it, their warrant article this year was to use 75,000 in the coming fiscal year 27. So that 27,000 versus 300,000, and it gives you a sense for the two balances. Is there anything else? So focusing on Brissett, the fund balance as of December 31st was 7.2 million. I have been checking it fairly regularly for the past several weeks. On Friday, it closed $23,000 down from what you see here, but today it was $42,000 up. So the recommendation that we are giving is still pretty current. But it did have an amazing year. It ended December 24 at 6.3 million. So it grew 830,000. The return was 14.1%. We have a benchmark that was developed by those trustees that were very much investment professionals, I have to say. We've not revisited the benchmark. I think our investment advisor was a little bit more conservative this year, so it didn't meet the benchmark. But since 2020, it has outperformed benchmark. And then we have the equities that are invested in proportions consistent with our investment policy. And right now, we're right in the middle of the range for equities. We are a little bit on the low side of the fixed income corridor, and we are a little bit high on cash as well. So we give Muskoma Wealth ranges, and then they have the latitude to invest and make changes as they see is responsible to changing conditions. And then they come 3 or 4 times a year, generally once a quarter, and give us an update, and we can ask questions. And of course, that meeting is open to the public should anybody else have questions. No, any other?
I think that's.
Am I forgetting anything? No, okay. So I'm newbie to this. I just, I'm gonna make sure I don't forget anything. So the big thing that we also do for Brissett every year is to come up with a recommendation for its usage. The first thing that we check is that line that's in bold, inflation adjusted book value. And again, that's as Betsy was saying, we want to make sure that we are preserving purchasing power because that's an important part of our responsibility. So we take the amount that we received from the Brissettes in 2016 and 2017, and we see what that amount would be if it were adjusted for inflation, and now it's up to 5.5 million. So our first stop then is to check with the most recent statement from Muskoma, and that's the top line. December 31st, it was 7.2 million. So thank heavens, we are, well above the adjusted book value. However, we know that we don't really have 7.2 million sitting there because the select board have encumbered some of the money for the summer reading program, the 250th celebration, et cetera. And then there's some more money that you haven't dedicated yet, but you could. So we net that out. And that gets us down to 6.9 million. Okay, well, that is still above our inflation adjusted book value, so we can keep going. And we, when thinking about then, it's at that point where we say, okay, well, what would be a good recommendation for the coming fiscal year? And I will tell you that we looked at a range between 4%, which is what it was this past year of the 5-year balance average. And we looked all the way up to 7% because then that's when we hit what the state defines as being the rebuttable presumption of imprudence. You can go above it, but you need to be really careful when you do that. So what we came up with then was the 300,000, which is approximately or very close to 5% of the 5-year average market value of the fund. We netted that out to see, well, now where are we? And we still have a cushion that comes out to a little over $1 million or a little less than 15% of the last, the December 31st value. As trustees, we didn't talk so much this year, but we did in the past about what should we keep as a cushion? And in the past we said, well, 10%, because really in any month we could have a 10% correction, certainly in any 12-month period. And this is obviously above 10%, but I think we also have a time right now with even more uncertainty. So we're a 15% correction. I don't think would shock any of us. So we, have the 300,000. If we could go down just a little bit more. The rationale then is that given the strong market in 2025, we felt that was a reasonable amount. And Brissette certainly gave us these two goals. One, to have this be a perpetual fund, but two, to have a robust distribution every year to the extent that that's reasonable. This sort of felt like the sweet pot, hitting both of those when we discussed it in January. However, again, inflation is out there. The possibility for adjusted market returns is out there. We also know that out of that amount, we have about $28,000 in fees, or 40 basis points. And so it just, again, that seemed like the sweet spot. But that's me talking, but that was a decision with the three of us. So I don't know if somebody would like to put more context on that.
I don't think so. Done it right.
You
We all agree, we've all talked about it.
Yep.
So I was not able to do this report in collaboration with my trustees, so that's why I'm wanting to constantly check in with them. So the last page then is just going forward, other recommendations to improve overall coordination and communication, with Brissette, but in general. And again, it's been, I think, a really great thing to have a select board representative come to the trustees meetings as well as staff. But I think we are feeling as though over the course of the year, there have been times we could have better communication. So just to go sort of through some of it, consider consulting the trustees when drafting documentation or vetting ideas, whether it's Brissette or others that pertain to functions to which we have some responsibility. It's awkward to have something come to us. It's, quasi fait accompli, and then we have to say, oh, no, but don't forget, we have this responsibility that we have to do it our way. Because we do. So that is one recommendation prior to a select board discussion. If somebody could forward the trustee related materials to the trustees, I do my best to monitor the town website to pick stuff off. But it's always possible that I'll miss something that's important, and then that opportunity for timely dialogue could be lost. After a select board meeting where there's either been a formal action or informal discussion impacting trustees' responsibilities, it is important that the content be communicated to the trustees so that we have accurate information. Again, in the past year, decisions have been made about Brissette, and then, nobody has gotten that to the trustees. I've just gone to the website, downloaded it, and given it. And again, I could miss something. And so it's just much better having it come from town hall. In terms of Brissette administration, coordination, I would find it helpful if when funding is going to an outside group, that they be required to provide a letter certifying that the funds will only be spent on the specific activities and programs designated by the select board, to sort of have that in advance, that they are saying, yes, this is what we will spend the money on, because we're forwarding the money without having any documentation, and that they agree that they will provide the trustees, or maybe more importantly, our staff, with invoices or the other supporting itemized documentation that's called for, that we need for the auditors on a timely basis. And this is not something that we've found always goes smoothly. So letting outside organizations know in advance could be really helpful to the costs. I don't know, more context thoughts?
Well, I just wanted to share that, clearly this isn't a list of demands. It's a list of ways that we could improve communication, because the select board, by the terms of the trust, doesn't really need to do any of this. However, when it comes to us, what we're trying to do is short circuit any sort of misunderstanding in terms of you reading something one way and perhaps us reading it another. And in terms of the burden on the town staff, I view sort of what we can work with the town staff similar to the Conservation Fund. The Conservation Fund is a separate fund that the Conservation Commission is very much involved with. And I know that there's a nexus there that allows, no money is spent out of that or even perceived to be spent out of the Conservation Fund unless the Conservation Commission is on board. And certainly I'm not suggesting that we go to that extent, but there is a precedent for us working collegially from the nub of an idea. So that's sort of what we're trying to get to, is when the idea presents itself, just to have a conversation with us. And we don't want to grind you guys to a halt at all. And we understand a lot of stuff is just kind of throwing stuff at the wall initially. So not everything needs to come, but once it starts to get traction, it kind of makes sense to just share the ideas with us. That's all.
Yeah, but other things too. I mean, whether it was the budget the amount of Brissette that is going to be in there. I saw that it had usage to date, and that's not what we had improved. So at first I was like, oh, well, how can it be an amount higher than what we approved? And I asked Tom about something else, and then all of a sudden it dawned on me, oh, that is some user fees, or, from Muskoma that's in there. And then all of a sudden it made me think, well, instead of budgeting 300,000, if you're going to include management fees, maybe you want it to be the 300 plus management fees. It's sort of up to you But if we talk about these things, or that, the allocation guidelines you've adopted, we might have, if we had more time, we might have said, oh yeah, and could you please put in there that they should have a letter, certifying that they will use it for what they say they will, or whatever. So it's just a number of times that after the fact, it's like, oh, we could have done things a little bit better. We can always do them better in the future. We can always, whatever, but it's just, I think just sort of a outlook that, we're here to be your partners. We have our roles to play, and we could do a better job with more communication.
Thank you. Thank you for those recommendations. I know I've got a couple of questions for open it up to select board members for questions, comments. I think one of the communication challenges is we can't discuss ideas except in a select board meeting. And if we go to you before we've talked about it, we don't have anything to talk about. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg.
Yes.
So you want the nub of an idea. I don't know if it's a good idea. I'd really like the opinion of my fellow select board members. Lo and behold, we're talking about it because we have to talk about it. We have to talk about it in a meeting. So I don't know how to get around that.
I don't know if staff sometimes is aware of ideas, and it could be, very vague, but because
Well, I think part of it is we can't, as you said, you can't really bring it to us until you've had a chance to, as you said, chicken and the egg, but I think if maybe we got the information as soon as you've had a chance to talk about it. As a preliminary, and as I think Kari said, we could all look up and we could all come to the meeting, but we aren't going to do that as a practical matter every time. So if we just got it early, once you sort of come up with it, maybe Ellen could be the one that whoever could transfer it over, or we become aware of it a little earlier. Because I think one thing I want to emphasize is we don't want, particularly the Brissette Fund, and very much we want it to be spent. We want that money to be spent. Who went in would want us to spend that money.
Yes.
And so we want to facilitate it, not be a pain, but we have certain statutory obligations and certain obligations to the town. And we want to make sure we fulfill those, but at the same time, we very much want to encourage, as I think the board does, whoever's going to be the beneficiary, whether it's a town organization or a private organization. We really would like to make it a smooth process and really encourage, let's get that money out there.
Thank you. The other question that comes to mind is the simplification. I mean, looking at the number of funds that you have, maybe this is really you guys to figure out, but boy, it seems complex. And if there were a way to make your life easier through simplification, it would make your life easier.
As a financial advisor.
Yes, and I think that, probably putting our heads together with our staff, I have to say the MS9 and the Common Fund with the over 200,000 little funds is particularly.
200 funds.
Yeah, not 200,000.
Yeah, no, 200 funds. Yes, I'm sorry.
Feels like 200.
Yeah. So, that would be one place where it does get very complicated, but we have learned in the past year or two that there was a court ruling that basically makes it impossible to get rid of those small perpetual grave funds. Although some of them are very small and generate $3 or $4 a year.
There's no de minimis provision.
Well, it's a court process, and just as context, the town was successful several years ago. I think, Kari, you were on the school board at the time, closing out a number of school district small funds. And so again, I think we would have to talk about, again, it's a legal proceeding, so we would incur legal fees and charging up the hill again, because I'm not dissuaded that there was an opinion. I think, there can be a different opinion. So anyway, I think that would be something that we would, and not only cemetery, but there are other funds too that we might encourage town to look at, and there might be other library funds, that kinds of thing that we could minimize.
Yes, yeah.
I do think, at least in the modern world, it's a little bit better than it probably was 20 years ago if you're trying to track these things with
Yeah.
paper and pencil. At least now, it looks like a lot, but they can, once you get the things formalized, I think, on the computer, it can take care of itself. I mean, it still looks like a lot, but it's not necessarily every fund has to be spent hours. Probably had to do in the past. But I agree completely. It'd be nice to be able to find a way to consolidate some small funds. It makes perfect sense, but I think there's some statutory and to make it hard to do.
Thank you. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Any other
Thank you.
questions, comments? No? Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So, yes, wonderful. And let us know if you have any questions about anything else.
Thank you.
And we'll discuss them together, but you have to be together.
Got it. All right.
Duly noticed.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we're meeting again on April 15th.
Oh, okay. All right. Good to know. Thank you.
Taxes.
Okay.
We're having another meeting.
Oh, all right.
It's posted, so.
All right. Okay. Christina, welcome.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine, how's everyone else?
Good, good.
All right.
Thanks for coming out tonight.
So I'm here tonight to discuss what we've been working on in Public Works as far as developing an asset management plan for the town. This really focuses on stormwater and on wastewater, both horizontal and vertical. Just give a quick overview. The table of contents, these are the quick topics that we'll kind of go down through just to let you know what we have done as we've worked through the plan. So
The horizontal and vertical, I struggled with, I found it in your, so now I know what it is, but maybe you want to explain to our
sure.
broader viewing audience what that means.
Sure, all right. So what we refer to as horizontal assets in the stormwater and sewer world is the actual pipelines that are in the ground and the structures that are the components, like either a sewer manhole or a catch basin that kind of connects it together. Those would be considered horizontal assets. In wastewater, the vertical assets would be your structures such as your wastewater treatment facility or your pump stations. And so those are the things that we actually concentrated on as far as developing the asset management.
Thank you.
And the reason, what is an asset management plan? It's actually a plan that delivers specific levels of service at optimal costs and considering risk factors that go along with that. So we're trying to sustain the infrastructure to the best of our ability, but with facts and data. So the reason it is important for developing this, because it does reduce the risks that are out there. It gives us an opportunity to really assess what we have, conditions, age, functionality, whether it's oversized, undersized, so that we know how to plan for the future. And it also helps us actually plan for those capital costs that can be coming along the way with results of it. So we had applied for some grants through DES, and we received monies for the horizontal assets, vertical assets, and stormwater assets to help us put this plan together. So next slide.
Can I, sorry, you had also presented, thank you, to the CIPC on both the storm drainage study and the sewer capacity study.
Yes.
Is this related to that?
It's intertwined. we have, when we went for the grant, for this, we wanted to select a prototype area in which to come up with an asset management plan instead of trying to do it for the whole overall town, but to make sure that we have the tools in place for a smaller section, and then it'll be used throughout the whole system. So when we applied for the grant, we chose three, an area for the stormwater, for the sewer, for the horizontal areas, basically kind of the School Street area, the Downing Road, Weatherby, some of the same area that we just we're working on for the water project. So that's where we chose both the sewer and the stormwater for that area. And then we also, as far as the vertical assets, those were our pump stations and the treatment facility. And that would be on the next slide. So what we have done, basically, there's different steps to go along with this, coming up with the asset management plan. First of all, we got together as a group, staff, DES also attended. So it was someone from the manager's office, planning office, and utility group at DPW, down at the wastewater. So we all got together and we came up with a vision statement. And then with that group, and then we went ahead and did a kickoff meeting for that, came up with the plan. Some of the other steps were to actually go out in the field and inventory our assets. And then determine a level of service. And that was another group. We came up together and determined what we thought the community would want to see out of this plan on what services that we're providing and a way to measure those services. And we presented that actually to the planning board and got their feedback and tried to incorporate that into the plan. And then we looked at life cycle costing and the implementation plan, which we're still working through to get that ready to turn in. And then the communication piece. So the vision statement that we did come up with is to continue to provide analytical through data, sewer and stormwater services with capacity, energy efficiency, and sustainable infrastructure that are resilient and financially responsible to serve the community and protect the environment. And then as part of this level of service, which is how the a way in which the community's assets will perform over time. And like I said, we could actually measure how staff is doing, how we're taking care of the infrastructure, where we need to improve. But we came up with a list of objectives and goals for each type. And we did this because we needed to know whether our goals would be realistic, and how we can basically show how the performance is. And it actually helps staff understand what those goals are, and the members of the community know what they're getting out of the monies that are expended into the program, whether it's maintaining the catch basins, whether it's maintaining our sewer lines, and then the consequences of risk and how we go about to achieve the funding for that. So a quick rundown of some of the levels of services that we looked at were under the customer satisfaction. And We wanted to make sure that we had public outreach. That's what we're striving for. We actually have just added a new tab under Public Works for asset management that will have our presentations. It'll have the implementation plan that we're working on, and as well as other literature and brochures that people can refer to on these topics. And we'll be beefing it up across the board, not just for water and sewer, but for pavement and other things that we're working on with assets. But for stormwater, it's like reducing flooding, making sure that our drainage structures are resilient. We wanted to, for customer satisfaction, it's important in this community to make sure that the grades are the right type of grades for bike, pet bike, walkability. And then also response time. So when someone calls us, that we actually do respond in a timely manner. And then as far as resiliency and compliance and enforcement, we actually have a new software piece. It's Lumen that we're utilizing for our work order system. And so all of this information that we have been gathering out in the field has been implemented into the Lumen, and we can actually create work orders, which will help us track time. It'll help us track what we've done on the asset. And so it's a really good tool once it's completely, all the assets are in there, to use moving forward to actually help us with budgeting. And then the effective as part of this is the capacity study for the drainage, so that we know what our size and what we can actually safely move through the system, so we know how much more we can put into the system. And also some of the other things that we looked at for customer satisfaction was to make sure that we are looking into green infrastructure and trying to make sure that that does get incorporated into our program as well. And then, of course, in the employee deployment, to make sure that we do have enough staffing and that our staff is trained how to actually clean these assets and do different things along with that. So those are some of the level of services for the stormwater. We did that with the wastewater as well, both horizontal, which I had accidentally put, the slide is incorrect, but it's basically still public outreach, service call response time, but monitoring the sewer rates, because it is to make sure that we're not way above what would be feasible for the rate users, and making sure that we're in compliance with New Hampshire DES, the sewer ordinance, and that we're actually out there cleaning, inspecting, and televising the lines so that we actually know what we have, and so we know again how to plan for the replacement of those or repair of those. Also, as part of the resources, it's not only the horizontal assets of the pipes and everything, but it's also the equipment that they need to actually do those functions for the sewer flushing or for the the jetting of the lines, televising of the lines. So it's all of those things as well, making sure that the fleet, that they have the vehicles to get there. So it's also planning for those resources as well. And then again, training our people so that they know how to do this. They know how to document these things, so that we can keep this program going. And then at the vertical assets, it's very similar, except we're looking at the structures. And we do a lot of in-house repairs at the facility. You know, it would actually cost the town payers a lot more, or I'm sorry, not the town, but the sewer rate payers a lot more if we didn't have such talented staff. So they keep the equipment up and running all the time, but it's developing, making sure that we are meeting the standards for the new NIPD's permit, with a new upgrade, the training that goes along with that, making sure that not only the users out in the system, such as maybe some of the restaurants or some of the industrial users, are educated, knowing, the fog program and such, so that it will actually cost the sewer rate users less money in the long run.
Christina, you used two acronyms.
Did I?
I like FOG and NIF.
Oh, sorry. All right, FOG is fats, oils, grease.
Yep.
So, sorry. And NIPD's is New Hampshire Pollution, I forget what the D is, Department of Environmental Services. Oh, no, it's not. It's National Pollution. It's our permit that we that we have. It's our general permit that we have to abide by. It's actually it does come down through us through
National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System.
yes.
Thanks, Athos. I was not gonna be able to sleep tonight.
It does come down through DS, but it's an EPA general permit. And as of April, we actually have to start applying with a new permit. But then we also monitor our pump stations, make, the age and everything. So we're always on top of the replacement plan and things. So we have been working hard to, get everything into this Lumen program, so that we can actually track it there versus just on spreadsheets or someone's computer and then someone else retires and that was on so-and-so's and, how data can get lost. So this is the new system that we have that we are starting to utilize is Lumen, and it'll help us with all of this. So we went out in the field. We looked at those different areas. We inventoried the assets, and we did that.
We can't read this.
No, the small, you can just keep going.
Got a lot of data. That was my takeaway. You got a lot of data.
You can go on, Rob. That is basically, that's how we would actually track our measurements of ourselves, how we're doing. So we would actually look at these level of services that we have presented to the community. And then we would look back annually and sometimes monthly or so depending on the measurements and see how we're doing. Do we need to change some of these level of services? Do we need to just be more efficient, or is it really we have not done a well enough job as determining how much we can actually get done in a certain amount of time? So it may require maybe more staff, but this would be a way in which to track that for analytical data to move forward with. And that's what the things that we will be tracking, measuring to the community, basically. But when we went out into the system, we prioritized our assets. And we did that both by the likelihood of the failure of the asset, as well as the consequence of the failure. So if it's in a certain location, say if it's near the school, or if it's near a nursing home, or if it's near the fire department, it's a critical structure, that would get a higher ranking for the consequence of failure because of the location. And then the likelihood of failure, we went and ranked all of those as well. And that was based upon the actual integrity of the structure, not just the age, but the physical condition of things. So, and then we put it together, and that we came up with a risk. And so this is an example of one of the risks for that area for the catch basins. So most of them, because of the area that we chose, we really didn't have a lot that were in the high risk area. Now, when we get down and do, maybe South Main Street or East Wheelock, that will be maybe a different situation. Those would be a higher priority. And that does not include all of the capacity, though. It figured into that. So that will be figured in as well. So once we've, so we did that for our sewers and our stormwater in that area. We also looked at the life cycle costing for those. You can go to the next page. In life cycle costing, which was an estimate of the total operating costs, maintenance costs, and for the actually operational life. And
So is this over the, I guess it says that right here, but I was a little confused by this one. It's over the lifespan of the asset?
Yes, of the asset, yes. And so the catch base in this area, things don't last quite as long just because of the salt and everything that we endure. Some of the older structures have actually lasted longer, but just because of the materials that are used and the catch basins and such, they just don't last quite the way they used to. So right now, about a life cycle for a catch basin is about 35. You can sometimes get 50 years if you're lucky out of them. There's really not a lot of repairs that you do with them, except at the time when there's not really much you can do as a repair, except if you, recoat it, but it's most of the time it has to be rebuilt. A catch basin usually has to be rebuilt. So it's more of a replacement cost that needs to happen. And so in the cost of installing a new catch basin, it's like $7,700. But we still have the cost of maybe just raising a grate, just doing the top surface of something. And so that's where there is a little bit of a replacement cost.
What is the bottom row? What does LF stand for? Cost per
What?
linear feet. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. And then with the drain lines, we looked at 8,300 linear feet in that area of the prototype area. And again, maintenance costs, repair costs, replacement costs. So the cost per linear feet of the asset is 213, but it's about 1.7 if you had to replace all of those lines in that area. The pipes that are out there now, a lot of them are corrugated metal pipe. They last in this area 25-ish, 50, if you're lucky, you get 50 years out of them. They would be replaced with, HDPE, which they say is more like 100 years. So when you do replace, at least you will get a longer time frame for it. But we do have that. A lot of those out in our system are corrugated metal pipes. And we're going to have to really look at, in the future, replacing some of those because they really cannot be slip line just because to begin with a lot of them are undersized to begin with. So we looked at the life cycle costs for this. And then we also looked at the vertical life cycle costs for the, if you want to go, Rob, to the different pump stations out in the system. And the wastewater treatment plant actually was built in 1969, a typo there. And we are going through the upgrade right away. We are actually 100% plans are about done. So we should be in the next month or so putting that out to bid. So hopefully we would start our new upgrade at the wastewater treatment plant by July of this year. And that was a $22 million upgrade project for the nutrients. And that does replace some of our components, but there's a lot of it that's still in another 10 years or so. Looks like we need to put another 20 million in there, and then another 10 or 20 years out, we have 20 more million to put in there. It's a very costly facility, but it at the same time, it costs so much to actually do some of these upgrades because you have to keep everything going at the same time as you're trying to do upgrades. So unless you have another piece of property, another low point, but then you're building all these new pipes to get there. So I think in 2028, we have the pump station 4 that we're going to be, that's on the CIP. And most all of these things are in the CIP. So they're already in the plan. So it's nothing new. Funding strategies for everything. The stormwater system, well, most of the operating maintenance and everything comes out of our operating budgets. The only time that we really get into the capital or loans, bonds is when we get into the renewal, the larger projects. And then of course, the really big projects too, you know, like we said, like the upgrade. So we do try whenever we can go for the grants. And lots of times with the stormwater or well, we haven't with the stormwater, but with the wastewater, we do go and try to get the SRF funding because it's usually a lower interest rate loan. And we usually we have in the past always gotten forgiveness on those loans on some principal.
SRF is?
State revolving fund loans through the Department of Environmental Services. So, of course, the stormwater, the wastewater, both of those, they're funded the same way, both horizontal and vertical, and then, but with the stormwater, that comes out of the general fund. So we've been pretty good about all our vertical assets actually making sure that they're in the CIP program that we have established, but we have not been really good stewards about having our horizontal assets in the capital planning, either both with the sewer or with the stormwater. So that is something that once we have our capacity studies completed, and it would be best if we did both phases, you know, the phase 1 and phase 2, then we can really see how we need to do that funding and how we can start saving for some of those. Stormwater, that's general fund. So once we finish the capacity studies, and finish looking at the assets across the town, again, we will, probably need to look at doing some sort of reserve or another method to help with that funding. Because it is expensive endeavor to actually do replacement of drainage. And that's something that, I don't know, there hasn't been one utility in New Hampshire that actually has created a utility fund for drainage yet. I think Dover is working towards that, but that's the only one in the state of New Hampshire. And then that would be more of a true cost share of who has impervious, and they would have to, pay more or something.
There aren't that many, even in New England, right? I mean, I think there's 2 in Vermont or something like that.
Oh, is there
right?
2 in Vermont? There's 0 in New Hampshire, but Dover's going. I think they're in the process of trying to do that.
I think Chittenden County has had to, but it's because of
MS4.
permit.
MS4.
Yep,
Yeah.
MS4.
We're talking about establishing storm.
Stormwater utility.
Yeah.
That would be, there's a lot of work to do it.
So
EPA has an MS4 requirement. Those communities that reach a threshold of discharge get tripped into what's known as an MS4 community, where they have to monitor stormwater discharge. That's obvious. That's obviously one of the mechanisms that can create a foundation for
the
a
utility.
utility.
Yeah, but it basically, given how much land the town of Hanover has, EPA, it would be like hundreds of years before that would happen. I mean, it's like South Burlington and Williston, I think, are the 2 in Vermont, in Junction County.
14 MS4 communities in the state.
You're not one.
But because of our capital improvement plan, I mean, we would just be moving forward to, when we do have that data together, that we would start putting, bringing forth to the committee projects that may need to be implemented through that process. Otherwise, or the other option is with smaller projects, and we do it now. Smaller projects, we have a certain amount of funding that we utilize, and with that, we just do it in our operating budget. And for the most part, we take care of it ourselves. But what has happened previously, because we don't have the asset management plan in place, is we have been, with drainage, been reactive and not proactive at all. So now the goal is going the other direction. So the next is the implementation plan, and that's basically how we are having training basically our people and letting people know what we're doing. So the baseline of how we came up with the decisions that we made for the level of service, for the how to clean, how to do all of the different things in which to put the plan together, as well as the training. We have developed SOPs, which is standing operating procedures on how to go about doing things. And then actually how to actually, in our Lumen program, and which is our work order system, how to create assets, how to create work orders. Those we have standard operating procedures so people can actually know how to do it and how to use it. And it will be, it's in a centralized location so that when Joe decides to retire, that information doesn't go with Joe, it's in the program. So Next, all right, so besides Lumen, we also have the GIS, and those two are tied together. We brought all of our mapping that we did have of our assets into Lumen. And the core elements that we are tracking with this grant was the stormwater, was the catch basins, green infrastructure, head walls, wastewater, manhole, sewer lines, pump stations. And then of course, all the other things that people don't really think about too, but is the maintaining of all the right of ways and things like that. That all has to be done too. So we just trying to track all of those to make sure that they are getting done so that we can get to all those structures. Like I said, that we have training that's happening. We've been doing training with our staff, and it's been individual training on one-on-ones for how to actually work in Lumen as far as how to create an asset and actually how to create a work order versus trying to do it, broad-based. So actually been sitting down on their computer and so with them so they can actually work through it. And we're trying to do that across all disciplines, not just the stormwater and the sewer, but we're also doing that. Sean Douglas with our facilities, he's been utilizing it for a while as well. We'll be utilizing it with water, using it for pavement. So it'll be across the board for us. So it's not something that's going away. So that's how we've been kind of implementing it. Is training our folks how to do it, understanding the level of service, and then for outreach to the public, develop a couple communication flyers and
Lost you.
oh, sorry, that was just on the asset management.
That's good right there, communication plan.
I like that.
It's some, flyers that we're putting out, and then we'll be tagging on like the water, sewer bills. We'll be, putting a little link on there that people can actually go to our plan so they can see what we're doing. So those would be basically the outreach.
And this presentation is actually a requirement of the grant.
This
It is,
a
okay.
requirement.
It's an eye opener as to how much work has gone into and will go into this effort. So it's a lot.
And it's the beginning, that's, it's small segment. And we have the rest of the town to do, but we're working on it.
That's good.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. I really like how this is really forward-looking as well with the assets so that it will carry forward. Do you guys have an idea, once you have everything cataloged with their lifespans, how you evaluate like where you want to transition to different either types of materials, technologies, green infrastructure, like how that review happens? I've just been so encouraged by like Hoboken, getting flooded in Sandy, but then when New York got flooded in 2019, they had, installed all this green infrastructure and everyone could walk around and manage their streets. Very unlike what happened with Sandy, and even though they have 3/4 of their city in a floodplain, they were able to really just switch how they thought about infrastructure and started building in this green infrastructure everywhere. So this is like a great catalog, and I feel like the next step then would be like, how do we keep moving forward so we're becoming more resilient, more green, more forward-looking? And I just wondered how you guys thought of that. Seems like you have this all really well integrated into your systems, but how does it?
With the green infrastructure piece, we can do a little bit on our end, but we have just the right of way, that's one of the issues is,
Right, we have
where
certain.
we're really have to look just outside, you know, like on the residential or the,
Yeah,
like the college or in those, that they're putting more green infrastructure in to take that out of our system. Because we gotta take it out, you know, with the rain barrels or whatever people can do. But we will be putting more information on ways for people to integrate green infrastructure on our website. But it's hard when we don't currently have it and we don't have the land in which to do it too. I mean, some of it, I mean, yeah, we have places like the tree or, you know, maybe some of the sidewalk pieces, but we don't have like the big parks where like some of them, they have right along the water frontage, they have the parks. We're not in a floodplain, we're like.
yeah, and under their playing fields too.
Right,
They've done a lot of conversions.
right. Where we're set up, how the town is set up, it's a little bit more challenging.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Regina.
for saying those 2 minutes. So just reading the room here for a second, I think we're asking some conservation folks. So we're turning to the budget next.
Teresa is here.
Teresa's here for the school board request. Understood. Yep, I'm just thinking about people's time. Other constituencies here. Warrant articles. No. Okay.
Now's your time to speak up if there are specific items on the agenda, because we have another 2 hours of meeting. So what Carrie's saying is, let us know what you're here for.
Budget.
You're here for
Budget, okay, awesome.
We're gonna go there in a minute, but
School,
school, so
Barbara, Bill,
Main Street presentation.
Main Street presentation, okay,
we have a cross section.
Yes,
That's
we do.
excellent.
yeah, okay, all right.
It is really excellent. So
So,
we did the school thing?
yeah, I think the school thing might be quick, so we are going with the consent of the board, I would recommend that we move forward to under business requiring action, the waiver to the commissioner of the DRA with respect to the local school tax rate. So,
It's okay with me.
yep, okay, so
You
Teresa.
you guys okay with that?
Yes, you guys, everybody good? Okay. Teresa, do you want to come forward, sit at the table here if you don't mind? Teresa Taylor is business administrator for SAU 70. This is a request of the select board to ask for a waiver from DRA with respect to an adjustment to the local school tax rate in the June billing. And in the packet is a letter that was written to the select board from the school board explaining the situation. Teresa, if you don't mind, just kind of recapping, if you're comfortable with that, just.
Sure.
Okay, that'd be great.
So back in November during tax rate setting, Jamie Dow had reached out to me and said that there's usually a document on the document anyhow showing the tax breakdowns and the percentage for the districts between Hanover and Dresden and Norwich breakdown and everything else, and that she needed to have that signed and sent over. So I did that, except there were 2 pages that should have went along. One shows just the breakdown and everything else without the warrant articles listed on it. And then the second document, it's a replication, but it just has the warrant article amount on that document. So I had sent the first page and not realizing that at the time that she really needed the second page also, that it played a factor here. In my other districts that I've been at, we didn't have to send these documents, so it wasn't something common to me. So when I did send it over, I didn't think twice of it. And then soon after, I was working with my predecessor on some documentation. And she said, did you send this page? And I said, I don't think I realized that that page should have gone also. And so at that point, we reached back out to the DRA, Jamie Dow, asking for what would we do at this point, but tax rates had already been set. So then she gave 3 different scenarios. And then we also reached out to our attorneys, the school attorneys. They reached out to even DRA and stuff, and it was kind of decided that the best action was for us to go ahead and draft up a letter, present it to you all. In the meantime, I apologize, in the meantime, we did meet with, we did come here for a meeting and everything else and meet with Rob and Ellen, and just kind of come together and say, okay, what's the best plan of action? So I drew up a letter ahead of time to give you guys some insight into what occurred. And at that time, so now the school board, I've gone before them, everything was explained to them. So they drafted a letter and presented it to you all in hopes that you all will be willing to draft a letter on our behalf, asking the commissioner of the DRA to go ahead and let us do the tax assessment on the second billing for this thing. And I will say, and I take total blame that I didn't send, the second page, but I will also say that documents that were being asked to be sent, the DRA already had in their possession. They had it there since April. It's a document that, just like this budget season we just finished, all the MS-22s, the MS-26s, every one of those documentations had to be submitted. The packet gets submitted along with all the documentation, and the same document that was being asked to be sent to them, they already had. So I kind of, it's kind of one of those things that when a lot of things, busy time of season. So some things sometimes happen, and that's kind of, in DRA didn't even catch it. That when they already had the documentation that said this is what it should have been, but this was a little shortfall because the warrant article number wasn't on there. They didn't even catch it. And it's not a blame thing. It's not that, because again, I take blame for that, responsibility for the document that I did send, but it's just a matter of none of us are perfect.
Teresa, that explanation. Rob, also you put together some explanatory memorandum. And I think the amount in question here is $367,000.
Correct.
And I think it's actually in the total budget is for Dresden is 33.7 million. So it's about 1.1% of your total expenditure budget. Is that
Came
right?
out to give or take about 9, 10 cents on that.
Yeah, on the local school tax rate.
Correct.
So the draft letter to the DRA asked for that amount to be added to the June tax bill, the 8 cents per, I think that's right.
Yeah.
8.37.
Yes.
So that is the ask of the select board. So does the select board have questions on that? Yeah. Yes.
Just for clarification, and I asked this before, but Rob, can you explain why the town is involved with this? Just for everyone, I finally figured it out. It'd be great if maybe other people who haven't figured that out can explain.
I'll try to address it.
Thank you.
The Department of Revenue Administration requires that the town be the agent of this request or make the ask, because we actually create the tax bill. While this is the school district portion of the tax bill, we're the only entity by state law that could ask for the waiver. So the statute does have a provision where if an error is made that's 15% or more of the budget, they can amend it at DRA. But because this falls below that, it requires a waiver request. I should point out that there's no guarantee that a waiver will be granted.
Thanks, Rob.
So we're the only ones that can cover that cost. We can ask for the waiver, and if we don't, And I mean, let's say we ask and they grant it. Rate will add 9 cents to to everyone's tax bill in June. Is that right?
Yes.
On behalf of the school, which we did not add previously. Is that right? Okay. So everyone out there, if you get 9 cents more on per your 100 per thousand, it's the school, not the town, right?
Right.
That's the bottom line. But I think we have to make, I mean, if we don't do this, we don't make this, the school isn't whole. And so that will really impact even your teachers, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna move that we recommend that the request for a waiver, we write the request for a waiver and submit the letter to the Commissioner of Department of Revenue Administration requesting authorization to adjust the local school tax in the June billing to recover the underassessed amount.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thus, okay, further comments, questions? I'm just, we cannot attach a letter to a tax bill, but it would be possible for the school district to send out a notification to residents of Hanover, like indicating that would be permissible.
Yes, I mean, in my packet, I did outline a communication strategy. If a waiver was granted, I would recommend we follow.
Okay. Good.
So do I need to modify that?
No.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor?
I,
Aye, that is unanimous. Okay, thank you, Teresa.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
We will get you, unless there's a signature.
It's done.
Thank you. It's time sensitive in that it has to be filed by April 1.
Okay, we will sign that tonight. Yes.
Already did.
All right, okay, all right, it's going this way. All right.
Athos. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to fiscal year 27 budget review. For those who haven't attended the other, this is maybe the 5th meeting, something like that, in a series. The first 3 were extended meetings. We actually started at 5 o'clock, not even 6 o'clock. Went through department level detail. We had kind of a roll up at the last meeting. This is the second look at the roll up and consideration of various scenarios, which are nicely outlined by Ellen. Yes, screen here. Do you want to make any comments?
Oh, you stole some of my thunder.
I'm sorry.
Which is just fine with me. But no, just really trying to give, everyone who's here a context of the budget process. And we really started, Rob started by sending out a memo to all the department heads on October 30th. So it is a long process. And that was the beginning. And all of the department heads were given the direction to develop a zero-based budget for fiscal year 27. And what does that mean? That means that none of the departments take their 26 budget and add an inflation factor just to sort of carry forward. It's really each of the department heads go line by line and evaluate what their needs are to provide the services to our residents that each department is tasked with. So we did that. And then again, over the next few months, Rob and I met with each of the departments. And again, as Carrie mentioned, it really culminated in 3 nights of budget presentations. And at our February 23rd meeting, we focused on net assessed value and revenue assumptions, as well as a first look at the undesignated fund balance projected balances. So really all the pieces of the budget were pulled together, and tonight we're really here to review the budgets for each fund at a summary level. And this is really taking those pages and pages of budgets and putting it into a format where not only can we look at our zero base budget, but then also go on to look at some scenarios of how we might use fund balance and some additions of, in the fifth scenario, really some sort of major additional spending that would come from fund balance. So I think just to start out and frame the conversation, I do want to talk about our net assessed value assumptions. And in the numbers we'll be looking at tonight, we did assume that the net assessed value would increase by $30 million. That's based on expected development. But we do, Rob and I do want to elevate the uncertainty with this assumption that's coming due to the abatement requests that we have received. And although a change in the net assessed value doesn't impact the budget dollars that we're looking at, it certainly does translate and can impact the tax rate that you look at. And again, as a reminder, the actual net assessed value and the actual tax rates will be set between September and October. So I think that that's important to consider as we go through these numbers. So tonight we're taking a look at, we are right now talking about the general fund. I should have said that. And tonight for the general fund, which is supported by our tax dollars, we're looking at 5 different scenarios. And the zero-based budget, and in the first column, that is resulting in a tax rate increase of 7.5%. That assumes that the only use of fund balance is for the deposits to the Land and Capital Improvement Fund, the Conservation Fund, and the Municipal Transportation Fund. And those are allocated on a warrant, but that is traditionally, every year we do that. So that is basically saying, taking a look at the department's budgets as they've presented them, and the full burden of the increase in spending falling to the taxpayers. Now, one thing that we have done and looked at traditionally is use of fund balance for one-time expenses. And we're very fortunate right now to have a healthy fund balance, so we really can entertain some of these uses. And on this form, and we'll take a look and we'll go across and take a look at the tax rate increases, but at the bottom, it really goes through and takes a look at what the impact to the undesignated fund balance is. So in the first scenario, we are taking a look at use for one-time expenditures. And those expenditures include funding the contingency fund, funding software improvements, and those include an investment that we've made for our human resources software, for our front office clerk and tax collector, and as well as an investment in a new cemetery piece of software that is necessitated from the transition from the front office software. And that's about $65,000. The second item that we, in this scenario, would propose use of fund balance is for the reservoir MUP. This is the balance between what's going to be drawn from the Capital Reserve Fund and the total value of the project. And so that would be a use of $85,800. And then the last piece is the 2027 funding for the South Main Street design project. Based on an analysis that we've done, a lot of the funding for that will be from the 2026 budget, but we would need an additional $30,000 to complete that study. Now, I just want to point out that all of these dollars are in the budget above. And so we're simply proposing or recommending that we consider, instead of drawing those funds from tax dollars, that we actually use our fund balance for that. And if those were drawn from the fund balance, we would still continue to have a fund balance of over 23%. Now, current.
And the tax rate would go, instead of being 7.5%, would drop to 5.5%. Because you're
Correct.
taking some of those expenditures and funding them from.
Which is what our policy states, that one-time funding, and the range is 15%, right? Up to
10 to 15.
10 to 15%
So,
in undesignated funds. So we're actually almost double
correct.
in our undesignated fund. So it falls within our policy.
It definitely does.
Can I jump in for a second since you brought that up, Joanna? Thank you for sending out the fund balance usage guidelines, which passed in December of 2015 from a previous iteration of the select board. And in addition to what you just said, Joanna, the only thing I'd like to add that I think is really important in this is that the concept of the fund balance over the recommended amount or the desired amount is essentially overtaxing, and Lisa's written here 11 years ago is that the policy be to return the overtaxation to the taxpayers in a reasonable amount of time. It's 3 years, I think.
And this does that in effect.
Oh, and the last thing,
Great.
and the last thing, which is in here as well, which you've, Ellen, are addressing, and very explicitly, is that it's not to, it's to pay for, it shouldn't be built into the budget, which you're doing.
With one time.
So, any questions on that? Nope. Scenario.
I guess my only question is with software, do we really see it as a one-time fee, or is it something, it's not at the level for like be in the CIPC capital improvement program plan, but presumably be updated probably around 5 years from now. Does it matter, or does that still count?
So I think in proposing this that we're saying, we think it counts, but I do think it's a fair conversation. And whether it's, I think in our CIP planning, we have not had software. But I think that it is an area that the town will certainly benefit from, and there may be other areas. I know there have been questions about our accounting system, and so those types of investments would likely, be a good, part of the conversation with the CIP.
I would say that when we looked at this, we were trying to figure out how we could accomplish proposed budget with reducing the tax impact, acknowledging that there were one-time expenses that we could fund. We're talking about less than 0.5% allocation for software.
Yeah, it's just a question about how you think about software in this day and age when
It
it is an ongoing, continuing expense that seems to be creeping into all of our lives and, everywhere. But you can also see it as a one-time expense to get this.
And then
much
the
needed
upgrades.
this much
Yeah.
needed upgrade that we haven't done in human resources for much longer than 5 years.
And it may be
Yeah.
something that it's the one-time big ticket number, and then in terms of upgrading, your annual upgrades or whatever becomes a one-time expense.
Right, it would just be part of the ongoing budget.
And my understanding from the presentation is that there would be a return on investment too, in just time and.
It's the one-time.
We'll have, with the HR software, when it's fully implemented and NeoGov goes away, I think we'll have a net shift of 22,000 savings from software.
And human time, human capital.
It's already, we're now using electronic timesheets that are imported into our payroll. So.
Definitely a move forward.
Okay.
Now we move into the realm of tax buy downs.
We do, and to Athos's point, that there is some direction within the guidelines to return some of that back to the taxpayers. So what we're presenting is sort of a phased approach to that. The first scenario we provided would simply again shift $200,000 from the taxpayers to fund balance use, and that would result in a 13-cent increase or 3.9%. And again, if we go on to add an additional $100,000 to that and use 300,000, we end up with a 10-cent increase or 3.2%. Even under that scenario, we do have a resulting fund balance of 21.8%.
Keep on going.
Yes.
Which leads us to option 5, and it attempts to address the tsunami wave projection at CIP in some way. And with that, we're looking to add money, $1 million into the deposit into the road and right-of-way and bridge fund, and $250,000 into our capital facilities fund. Both of which will be drawn on in the not too distant future for larger projects, which in effect buys down the tax rate, future tax rate.
And we would still have a reserve of 15.6%
fund balance, which we believe, given the global stage and the federal and what's happening federally, that would be a conservative approach and warranted.
Yeah, that begs the question, what is the appropriate amount to have in there?
10 to 15%.
15%, but should that number be changed? What is the state recommending?
Well, the state recommendation uses quite a different formula, but I know that in looking up at the GFOA, which is the Financial Officers Association, they recommend having 2 months, which translates to about 17%, 17.6%. So slightly above our top end. Again, we're looking at sort of operating costs, not the capital costs.
Okay. Well, in terms of the placement of these different funds, is there differences in investment? So interests that we earn in the undesignated fund versus the road, right-of-way, and bridge fund, for example?
Yeah, so the interest rates are very similar between the two. Who benefits from it is different. So when it is sequestered into a capital reserve fund, that interest accrues to that purpose. When it sits in the undesignated fund balance, it's in our pooled cash, and it does accrue to our short-term interest revenue. So that does accrue to the general fund.
To the question of how much is enough,
Yep.
To the extent we're putting away significant amounts into those
Yeah,
CRFs,
that's a good point.
does help mitigate.
It's a good point.
I know like last year and this year we talked about planning to plan. Would I find that now in the operating budget of planning or DPW? Did that get settled, or is it attached to these capital projects? How is this being organized?
The planning department's budget includes a $50,000 reserve for planning for consulting services. That has been an item that I established 10 years ago as sort of a buffer for when the town manager says, hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. I'm no longer making those requests from the planning department because we have the opportunity to plan in advance what we're looking at down the line. For example, South Main Street construction design is part of this budget. If you're asking me, have I thought about it? We have 50,000. Have I added more? Or have I looked at what we should be appropriating? The answer is no. I can sit with my team to see if there's a need for more money, but I think that 50,000 is a great first step.
I mean, the things that stood out to me was, the housing study that didn't seem to get finished. And then also the shared street vision plan will only have 1 or 2 shovel-ready projects, but we're spending, $1 million on the roads every year. It'd be nice if we had the plans to do them, the way we want them to be done in the future. It seems like we're always caught in the cycle of not having planning dollars or not thinking ahead. Like, we want to figure out a way, to connect up our intersections so they're safe, or
How about even redoing the zoning, which hasn't
or
been
redoing
done,
the zone. Well,
which is gonna be more than $50,000, I think.
redoing the zoning. Yeah, I thought I thought there was a question of where those planning dollars should live, if it's in the planning department or.
Well, I think we're talking about a mix of activities, zoning, regulatory updates, planning is planning department, design elements, road construction planning, infrastructure improvements, DPW. That's how I would try to, I don't want to silo them, but that's how I
Yeah, and
see
some of them are very intertwined.
Yeah.
Or should be.
Should be. And so I guess we've laid it out to the best of our ability. The contingency fund that we have mirrors this year's contingency fund. I don't believe we've tapped this year's contingency.
We're planning on building maybe this reservoir multi-use path that was identified 2015? 13 in the shared streets safe routes travel plan.
Safe routes to school.
Safe routes to school plan. So imagine we're on the precipice of another decade of plan, but we don't have these plans. But yet we know there are other routes that we need. We know that there are other places that we want people of all ages and abilities to be able to move around freely in our town. And we want to be able to stay with something everyone can visualize and people know that I'm interested in. How are we going to develop those plans between $50,000 and zoning changes and housing studies and just a complete streets policy that doesn't translate to plans unless you actually spend money developing those plans. It's good that we have money to finish this South Main Street plans. But I don't see how we go forward in our visioning without planning to plan and working that into our budget so that that's part of our ethos. That's how we are going to become more resilient. That's how we're going to become fiscally responsible. It's how we're gonna become more sustainable. And serve more people. More equitable.
So the other thing to think about, and I don't know the answer here at all, but is there enough on our plate from a staff capacity standpoint between South Main Street, West Wheelock, all the other initiatives that are already, I mean, are we kind of maxed out for this year with all the design and work in front of us? It's just a question of staff, not dollars. In other words, are we in a position to spend the dollars if we don't have the staff to be involved because our plate is full?
Yeah, I mean, I see, we have a team working on South Main Street. We have a team led by Dartmouth working on West Wheelock. We have Caroline Radish of Tool Design with her Van Dean, can't say the consultant name, sorry. Working on the Shared Street Vision Plan. We have Stantec working on the WAG Trail. We have Bowman working on the Grove Brook. What, Stantec? Stantec, oh, Bowman's working on South Main. Have they come together? Like, is that still doesn't cover all of the big junctions. Like, we need the plans so that we can move forward. And we hire consultants to actually draw and engineer the plans.
It does take staff resources.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do a year.
And you've highlighted a significant amount of planning going on and design going on.
Yeah, sounds like a lot.
Good. I don't mean to make light of it. I'm struggling
But like,
with how.
yeah, most of those are not at a point we could even write a grant to get dollars for them. They need more design work before you would even chase grants, right?
So with regards to the WAG trail, I mean, we can parse this out in a way that, I'm not prepared to throw a number at the board. It would be inappropriate for me to just grab a number out of the air. I can sit with my team and look at what our alternatives are to see what we can do. I know, for example, DPW has a full workload. I've asked them to consider projects in FY27. And I was told, no. The things that we've talked about trying to get accomplished with our current resources is somewhat limited. I will tell you that it's unusual for the town manager to be managing South Main Street design.
Yep.
But that's the resource we have, and I'm prepared to take that on. Because it was something that I've been involved with for the last 5 years. The challenges between now and the 30th, which is your first public hearing on the budget, in order for us to get a budget prepared for the posting of the warrant, which is due April 13th. And would mean coming up with a number, getting it vetted, presenting it to you, or simply looking at what we currently have budgeted. And I will flag the contingency fund as a source where we could move monies out of that, $50,000, and put that in 25,000 to the public works and 25,000 to planning, or all 50 in planning, with the expectation that it be used for zoning rewrite, housing study, and focused on other planning related projects. The planning department may have the capacity to take those things on, or the ability to contract it out. But we have a planning director who's been on board basically 8 months. And still trying to find the path forward for how, with her leadership style and the workload that she has. So, for me, contingency fund is a safety valve based on zero-based budgeting approach. I will use the example of a cruiser was totaled this year. That may be where we need to tap the contingency fund. It was an uninspected expense, and it wasn't fully covered by insurance. We're going to look to figure out how to fund it, but there may be a portion of the contingency fund used for that purpose. I guess the path forward is up to the board. My recommendations have been presented to you tonight.
As for CIPC?
Well,
No.
so just on this particular issue, this last issue that Jenny raised.
The whole, yes, not how to use undesignated fund balance and things that the CIPC had hoped that would be considered.
Okay, before we turn to that, can we just maybe just with respect to the issue of, so Rob, I think what I hear you say, not to put words in your mouth, but is you put forward a variety of options and maybe you're leaning toward the last column. And that there may be some flexibility with respect to the contingency fund. And I guess the other option would be if you wanted to use a CRF, by 50,000 or something that, those are things that could be decided between now and the 30th. But with respect to the contingency fund, no decision need be made. You could use a portion of that for planning work if you so chose next year, right?
Contingency fund is intended to be for
Contingent.
Unexpected. Okay, so, all right, yeah,
Blowing up.
Yeah.
so it's not that flexible.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's not something that, we're planning the budget. If we're looking to fund something for next year, we should
do it.
I agree with that.
Okay. Okay. Further comments on this particular issue from select board members?
I have some.
You do? Yes. You want to go, we'll go there and then we'll go to Carl. So, yes, please.
So just in general, I think affordability is top of mind for many of our constituents. It's expensive to live here. It's expensive to run a business here. And I would really like to see our increase in taxes be pegged to inflation. So CPI Northeast February was 2.7%. So we're about 0.5% off, which for a $23 million budget, we're talking $115,000. So I support option 6, but I would love to see buying down the rate go up to a total of $400,000, $415,000 in order to get us to a 2.7% increase in the general fund tax rate. And that will bring our undesignated fund balance below 15%, but just by a hair.
So that would put us at 14.6% on the,
I think that's
is that right? It's about 1%.
So I respect that and I agree affordability, our taxes are high. But we also have not addressed a number of our infrastructure issues in town. I think, South Main Street is one. How many breaks are we at? 8? And I kind of feel like we have to pay for it somehow, and $1 million this year, it'll probably be many millions of dollars by the time we implement it. And so I don't feel that percentage, although, it impacts my pocketbook. I feel like we have done a very good job at kind of sticking to inflation over the past decade that I've been on this board, and I think we haven't perhaps set enough aside to deal with some of our infrastructure issues, and I think we're gonna, as our CIP committee, put forth this, image of the tidal wave over, this building, which is actually, I think we're gonna have to pay. And so I appreciate taking the 0.5 point down. I think that we need to, I would actually feel better putting it into a reserve for some of these outstanding issues that we have to address.
Option 7.
But I'll go along with the game, but I just wanted to say that I feel like we haven't.
For clarification, option 6 is option 5 plus.
And I guess I would just say that you will recall that we did end up in October adding back. So I think last year effectively we went up 1%. So we went up less than the rate of inflation. So there is that kind of.
I think we did.
I thought it was just slightly over the rate of inflation last year.
I believe at budget time, it
Yeah.
was just slightly over the rate of inflation, but at tax rate setting, this is where, again, we have that disconnect. And it's this year in particular is difficult to compare because at budget time, we were using the old net assessed value and
Right.
our new net assessed value. But because we had additional state revenue of almost $240,000, the decision at tax rate setting time was made to return that to the taxpayers and drop the tax rate. And that's where we ended up with the $3.30 on the municipal rate.
The school rate's a whole other ballgame.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, and that goes to your point of trying to keep our taxes more affordable so people can stay in the community and not have to leave or try to get into the community.
All right.
Yes. So I'm now going to introduce myself as Kari Asmus, one of the co-vice chairs of the CIPC, which the acronym Capital Improvements Program Committee. John Dolan sends his regards and his regrets. He is under the weather tonight. Otherwise, you would have been seeing him sitting here tonight. And I sort of felt that the best thing to do in this conversation about, some of the one-time costs, should they be there, how to think about capital reserve funds, that I wanted to read in part from our report, which John didn't do when he was here. But, thinking about that tidal wave, the report reads, as part of the fiscal year 27 budget process, the select board should identify opportunities to consolidate, reduce, reschedule, or cancel already planned capital expenditures. To do this, for the project asset replacement request over the next 6 years, the board should ask whether it is a capital improvement asset replacement the town needs to have or one that would be nice to have. So that's kind of, I think, a lens to be looking at some of the things that they're on your list. For those items determined to be nice to have, the board should reschedule them to a later year or cancel them. But that would be up to you. I think that we talk more about timing at Capital Improvements Program Committee. Question is, do these need to be happening, now, particularly when you're not sure yet how much money you're going to need for programs that I think you've identified as very high priority, namely South Main Street and West Wheelock. The second recommendation was conserve undesignated fund balance surpluses to phase in expected sharp increases in debt service. To do this, the board should, 1, modify its fund management policy to allow retention of undesignated fund balances to subsidize significant future debt service increases and to consult with the Department of Revenue Administration about how best to retain these surpluses for special purposes. So one of the things that was being anticipated was that the town will probably need to pass bond. And in the year that that comes online, you could see a significant uptick in debt service payments. If you have monies in a capital reserve fund, it appears that it is possible to say the first year take, say that your uptick in the debt service payment is $500,000, or maybe it's only $50. Who knows what it is? But say $50,000 or $500,000. Say the first year you could take $300,000 out of the capital reserve fund. The next year $200,000. The next year $100,000. That gives households the opportunity to acclimate to the debt service increase, but it also allows time for the net assessed valuation to grow, which means then that those dollars are spread out over more bearers of the debt service. So those were things that we really wanted to make sure that you're thinking about as possibilities when you're thinking about how to use these reserve funds, which it's really perfect timing. We need these, but you're also then talking about, and this now I guess I'm veering away from capital improvements and just thinking about past years' discussions in different committees, also maybe the finance committee. But one of the things I guess, you're saying, do we have the money to do some extra things over the course of the year? I just wanted to point out that between, the end of fiscal year 24 and the end of fiscal year 25, the surplus grew by over $2 million. That means over $2 million was collected that didn't need to be collected. And the year before that, it was also $2 million. So this past year was $2.4 million. From 23 to 24, it was $2.1 million. So to me, that says that there is some cushion somewhere in there. I know that it was explained that a lot of that was because of vacancies and a little bit of better returns on different investments or funds from the state, what have you. So, I guess there's no guarantee that there's going to be that sort of continued increase in the surpluses, but it still suggests that there maybe is some ability to find some efficiencies in the monies that are included in the budget. So I just want to throw that out there. I would also just, point out that in the policy that we're talking about, part of the discussion is, in general, the town wants to build recurring expenses into the tax rate, which is what you do. Using the undesignated fund balance to offset recurring expenses will over time deplete the undesignated fund balance and lead to larger tax increases in following years. So that's really the downside when you're, considering using more to buy down the tax rate this year. I'm trying to think, what was the expression that our town meter, you're building in a deficit that at some point there's not going to be the undesignated fund balance to pay for the operating expenses. So that's part of your policy. It says give it back, but you really need to be careful about what you're doing for your future.
Yep.
So those are, CIPC with a little bit of Kariasmus thrown in on the side. I appreciate it. And I do actually have some questions about the budget, but what's been presented so far, what's on the consolidated sheet now, but that has to do with the expenses and some of the revenues and not what the core of your conversation is right now.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Thank you, Corey. I looking at the undesignated fund balance usage guidelines, I think that I saw the same tension that you did. On the one hand, fund balance in excess of the range is overtaxing. That money should be returned to the taxpayer. There's also at the very end of the policy, the amount of undesignated fund balance in these funds will reflect unique anticipated regulatory, legal, and operational developments certainly the tidal wave coming would be that. So, this is kind of trying to strike a balance. Okay, we need to get ready for the tidal wave, but we also need to ameliorate and be mindful of affordability. So it's a little bit of, I think, a little bit of both. So.
I want to reframe the title frame, just like we want to be penny wise, but not pound foolish. So I think like this idea, like things keep breaking and we got to go run out and fix them. We should be planning, like we just had this really great presentation from Christina Hall, right? We should be planning to replace these assets. So I guess I just supporting what Joanna was saying, just this idea that infrastructure costs money. It ends up costing less money if we plan a little bit to replace it. And I think we know we have a lot of aging infrastructure right now, which is why we're doing these inventories and why we're thinking through all this. And I guess if you think the $50,000 for the plan is sufficient, then I just want to make sure our like planning staff has the flexibility to hire what consultants they need, whether it's Apicos, zoning, other people.
So given my read of the room, perhaps it wouldn't be appropriate to put it in the planning department budget, but put it in town manager's budget to allocate.
That might make more sense because you'll know what is most
Pressing.
Yeah, what's most pressing at any given time.
And
I just know like we have these objectives to like really support various initiatives, and just want to make sure we can do that. We're not asking them to do things we can't do.
I would like to put it in the family's budget.
I heard you. I'm just saying move 50,000 from the contingency to a fund.
To a town manager, gotcha.
Town manager's budget, not add money to the budget.
But one more just thought on the tidal wave. My only critique, I think John's presentation was phenomenal. And but my only critique is that he didn't consider debt that was rolling off, and he didn't consider new development. So we have $250 million of new development planned right here within a couple hundred yards. And we have about $1 million annually of debt service that's going to roll off in the next couple of years, right? Something like that. 29. We come down by about 800,000 in debt service. Now, if we did all the things that the CIPC has on that list, the debt service would go way up. But there are some external factors that affect the town's revenue. And mainly it's the net assessed value.
And I'll just though add context in that the debt rolling off is not in the general fund. It's not in the funds that are taxpayer supported. Now, the residents and the ratepayers certainly are the same, much the same population, but just as a note.
You're right, Ellen. I should have said that.
But partially mitigating that, I think, is that a portion of like South Main Street will be funded most likely from sewer and water. So to the extent that there are undesignated fund balances there, it could be swept in, plus potentially the $1 million in the road right away, potentially, for something like South Main Street.
That's the intent of that.
Okay, all right. Yes. Okay. We have additional agenda items beyond this, believe it or not. We have a number of them, including South Main Street, so we need to keep going. So
What do you need from us?
We would, I think we need, is it option 6? Or is option 5 preferred choice? Or any of the options on the table, 1 through 6?
option 5, sorry, just to be clear, is the last as presented.
Yes.
And 6 is the additional tax relief that
Brings up the CPI.
Yeah.
I will comment, Jared, that 1 month CPI really is a challenge. The town uses a 1 year tagged to the September rate, and that the annualized CPI was 3.2%.
Yeah, I just used the annual from February, which was two. But sure. Do.
So that's where I started the budget.
Oh, that's okay. I appreciate that.
The only other context that I'll provide too, and Kari, really appreciate your noting that we have had surpluses over the last couple of years, but through December, our general fund compensation overall is just right at 50%, where we would expect to be halfway through the year. So right now, our performance, the indications are that we would not have that surplus due to open positions. And that did account for about 1.4 million of that surplus. So again, don't expect to see that continue unless something radically changes. And at the end of March, we'll also take another look as we're through 3/4 of the year.
People want to speak. I know it's not a public hearing, but no one was speaking.
Yeah.
I didn't know. if they
Well, we
didn't
got
speak.
Kari, but are there other members of the public here? Do we have any online?
You do have three individuals online.
Okay.
Anybody wishing to speak online? Oh, sorry.
What's it?
Okay, we'll go to online in a second. Whit.
If, I did have a budget question. Is there more budget coming, or is this it?
This is it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Whit Spalding from the Hanover Conservation Commission. I know we're in the roll-up phase, but I've asked a few times. I just want to make sure that peeled back in there is our $22,000, $22,700 for the Conservation Commission. That is what we worked on with town staff. I've given it to Rob and to Carrie, and I can provide it again tonight if you guys don't have that yet. It's a tiny, if there's a smaller budget from a statutory board out there, let me know. I know this is like 0.001 of what you're talking about, but I just want to make sure it's in there, and I can provide it to each of you right now in a handout if you need it. That's my question.
Take copy so we all have it. If you have it,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just don't want, I want it to be quick and efficient for you guys, so
Thank you, Whit.
absolutely. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And again, this is what we put together with town staff.
Thank you.
It's good.
Oh, it's
Yes.
So just very quickly, it's actually net negative. If you take in the CPI, we are, and it's covering the same things that we have, that statutorily we are asked to do. There's 4 line items. If you have any questions, great. Otherwise, that's our number.
So, Whit, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention.
Yeah.
As you know, I wasn't here last week.
Right.
You know, the challenge, I think, for us is that we have seen over the last 3 years a portion of your budget not be expended. And, you know, we're looking at trying to figure out how we can manage taxpayer dollars. And one of the things that you do have access to that most other boards don't is funds specific to properties. For example, you have $100,000 for the Mink Brook Community Forest that is sitting in an account usable for that management. So whether it's invasives, plantings, whatever, that property has funds for that purpose. The Baum property has funds for management. And for me, the budget process, while it didn't go smoothly for committee, you know, the planning department staffs your board. And my hope would be that the conversation about what's being programmed and how the values are attached to those programs are planned in advance so that it doesn't feel like we have a pot of money, now we need to figure out how to spend it. And I'm not suggesting that's what you're doing or what the committee's doing. What I'm saying is the process that we've gone through here is the culmination of 6 months of basically trying to tease out each level. And so again, this is a small amount, but I think there are pots of money that can be tapped that haven't been tapped.
If I may, and I appreciate what you're saying there, and I do want to back up to one other very positive thing I've heard tonight, which is exploring the multiple options for the overall general budget. That process that you're undertaking, I applaud tremendously. I'd love to see that applied in other areas as well, where you're looking at big picture, multiple options, and then drilling down. For this particular, what we've outlined here, none of these items are germane to the other uniquely designated funds that we have. So this is not Minkbrook Community Forest or any of the others, first of all. And then second of all, we did start this process with town staff and we're told to stop and wait till after this budget process. So we're in a little bit of a catch-22 this year with new staff, as you have alluded to. So we would love to go through this process. We have drafted exactly what you're asking for and have been told to not exercise that, which we will do with you and with Ellen after you get through this budget cycle. So that's why this is a little bit, we've been a little sheepish here tonight because of that. Because we have done what's asked and have been told to hold off on that process until the next cycle because staff is busy, et cetera, and it's a small budget. I feel a little bit like Daniel Webster here. It's like, it is a small budget, as they have said, sir, and yet there are those who love it. If you just let us for this once, and then we can get to the thing we've already set up to do as you have asked, once you're all through this process, that would be helpful. Are there other questions?
Thank you for all the work that you do. We appreciate it, and we recognize that this is a small budget. So thanks for what you do with what you have.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got room for 2 more minutes?
On
On
this topic?
Yes,
If it's different, and if it's quick.
it will definitely be quick and it'll be somewhat different.
Okay, we have a lot more to do.
I understand, yeah, I'll 2 minutes. It's so Barry Matthews, resident of Norwich, but I'm the executive director of the Hanover Conservancy. And just following Whit's request, I want to speak a little bit on their behalf. As long as the Conservation Commission has existed, they've been steadfast allies of our work to protect land and water for the community, to educate the public on the importance of sound science-based stewardship of their land, and to connect the residents of Hanover to the places that they live. Over the years, we've witnessed the value of their expertise and their dedication to their work. We work together on the care of some of Hanover's most beloved places, like Balch Hill, Brook Nature Preserve. We co-host programs. They have been bringing a dynamic range of public speakers in. All this work, we have seen its value and how it amplifies what we're doing from our conservancy lens. And yeah, you want to get in the weeds of this budget. Better you all than me. This is impressive work. And it is a small piece, but as we've seen in the recent years, have pullback at the federal level in support of these policies and initiatives. I think now more than ever, we need folks stepping up at this level. The Conservation Commission's made up of, talented, hardworking volunteers. I applaud their ongoing efforts. And, from the Conservancy's perspective, we fully support the request for this budget, just funding them to do the work that, needs to get done here at the town alongside partners like ourselves, UVLT, and many others. So thanks again, Whit. Thanks for all of you, and thanks for the time.
Thank you for those comments, and thanks for the work of the Conservancy.
Of course.
So with the indulgence of the board, I'm going to ask that we let staff consider this request and come back on the March 30th meeting, and we'll.
You're going to set a public hearing tonight for March 30th.
Yes.
What I'm going to post is the budget for your consideration.
Okay.
And I need to do that 7 days in advance. So I guess I would like the read of the board as to whether or not I figure out how to fund that difference between, I think it's
It's $8,825. It is the difference between what we have in the current budget and the 22,700.
I see.
Which is
So-
on that.
well, the planning department proposed conservation commission budget, which
Was $12,000 or
13,875.
It's an
13.
it's an additional $8,000.
We should come up with that.
And she was present for this adjusted budget and approved of it.
Yeah, it just seems like it got put in too low, like it's inconsistent.
I'm asking for a read of the board, find the 8,000.
Yeah, I think we should find 8,000.
Yep.
And thank you, but recognize that this is the beyond the 11th hour. And I know that you mentioned the issues, et cetera, but we look forward to engaging with you earlier.
100%.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Back to scenarios and taxes. So my read is scenario, the last column. I'm getting some head nods. Yes.
Yes, the last column.
Yes, last column. Okay.
5.
All right.
Option 5, we'll build the budget
Thank you.
based on option 5 for the general fund.
Thank you.
Moving on to the fire districts.
Fire districts, yeah, let's keep going. We have a lot more to go through tonight. Yes.
I will.
I know, let's do that.
Actual fund, just as Maria, if I do have really questions.
I'd like to point out something. So Kari Asmus, and I have to say that if you look at the town manager's budget dashboard, you're supposed to, a person would think that you were adopting the budget tonight, and this was your last chance to talk. And then if you look at the timetable that was adopted at your last meeting in February, this was supposed to be a public hearing. And then you go to the town website and you can't really tell if this is a hearing or not. So as a member of the public who feels that she's pretty on top of things, I have to say, I really, coming to this meeting, wasn't sure how much there would be time for public input because it's really not clear. Now it's, yeah, we're going to do it on the 30th. But I wanted to point out that going through what's in the town manager's dashboard for the combination of those 3 first meetings, the 2 in January and the 1st in February, and you add those numbers up for everything that's supposed to be expended, you get to one number. You get to this, now it's not at the top, but it should to know what, so you, on the dashboard, you can look and you get a certain amount, but you don't get the total, you're missing $2,188,000. What are those expenses? You can't tell from looking at the town website, and that's a lot of money. And I have to say, there's also not any information for much of the general fund in terms of what revenues are coming on. I mean, I have to say, we're missing revenues, we're missing expenses. You know, I mean, I have to say, I love the summary sheet, but it doesn't begin to meet the, you know, the information of sub-accounts that RSA say that is supposed to be available to the public for a public hearing. And again, maybe this isn't the public hearing and you'll have it, you know, on the 30th. I'm just saying that right now, there's a big gap between what's on the sheet and what we have backup for. And I would say, so like what's there, does that include you know, and I just have to say, I mean, I have been looking at the dashboard. I couldn't find the Conservation Commission. Whit was here at the meeting at the end of, you know, and he asked and he said, it's on the dashboard. You go to the dashboard, it wasn't there. It was added, but there hasn't been an opportunity to come earlier and say, hey, why is the Conservation Commission budget been cut by, you know, 10,000? So it's, you know, I'm glad that it fit in tonight. I'm glad to hear the discussion, but you know, we've kind of been missing some things here. And in particular, I would like to know, and if we go back up actually to the, on this sheet where it shows the personnel costs, we see, I mean, I just don't understand how if salaries are going up by 3.5%, that Social Security can be going down by 0.7%. And maybe that was over budgeted before. Maybe we somehow moved a lot of employees off of Social Security. I also, you know, the New Hampshire retirement system, that's going up higher. Is that a new rate that the state has? You know, I'm just looking at these numbers and I did listen to the meetings and I can't find answers why salary is going up, but Social Security is going down.
So I can address both the Social Security and the NHRS again, under the zero-based budgeting. This is built from the bottom up. And yes, the 26 budget is over budgeted for Social Security. And that's why we see that coming down. And on the NHRS, we did not have a change in rates. They were set for 26 and 27. So that again is just, it is built from the bottom up by employee. And this is the budget that's needed to fund the NHRS based on the staffing that we have included in the budget built up. So as far as the difference, you know, I actually just need to see what's missing on the dashboard, because these, and certainly for the public hearing, we will update and have current line by line detail for each of the department's budgets. So that, and that certainly will tie to all the documents. And certainly will need to take a look at this, but between the times when all the departments were reviewed, we certainly didn't sneak $2.1 million into the budget. So there's a disconnect that I cannot tell you tonight because it's going to take me some time to take a look. But I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so, you know, it's just, yeah, we need considerably more information for the 30th.
It sounds like it's coming, and that will be posted prior to the public hearing.
Oh, correct.
Yes.
Provided we set one, 7 days.
Yeah. Well, so
We have to set a public hearing. Yeah.
okay. Fire fund, quickly. Okay.
Yeah, so the fire fund, I think a couple of things that I'd like to call out. And this is where, you know, we do have an overall $30 million increase in net assessed value assumed in the budget. The great majority of that would fall within Fire District 1. We allocated 10% of that to Fire District 2. And so because that's sort of the change in the net assessed value isn't equal, you're going to see a little bit of a change in the overall rates. Basically the apportionment of the tax burden is based on calculations that are set, and it does include sort of an allocation of the cost of the hydrants that are only in Fire District 1. So just sort of as part of an explanation of the numbers at the top. I think that overall, we do have use of fund balance to balance this fund, but it is being used for a couple of one-time investments. One is, again, another investment in software for, I think it's called First Due. And then Chief Gilbert has proposed doing a strategic plan. And so that's a $20,000. So, you know, overall, I think that from when the budgets were reviewed, there aren't changes in the fire budget. And overall, you can see, can't read that. Basically, we're looking at a 4-cent per thousand increase in Fire District 1, a 6-cent in Fire District 2, and then a 4-cent increase in Fire District 3. So.
Okay, thank you. Questions about the fire district? Seeing none, shall we move on to water?
Okay, for the water fund, overall, the budget is proposing a total of roughly 11% increase in the water use charges. And that really is made up of a couple different elements that we've talked about. The first is we did need a 2% increase just to balance the fund. But in addition, we have a 5% increase in the rate so that we can deposit, if you will, another $113,000 into the capital reserve fund for the future investments. And then 3 years ago, we started phasing in the increase of the quarterly base rate. That's based on the meter size. And that is also to generate funds for investment in the infrastructure. It was part of the National Association of Water people recommended. I think one of the important things to note is that the great majority of residential meters are 5/8 inch, and that quarterly base rate has already achieved its top rate. So really this $95,000 is coming off of the larger meters. I guess there are some, well, I'm not a water expert, like 1-inch residential meters, but in general, that 4% increase is not impacting the great majority of the residential users. So
People with really good showers.
yeah, yes, to really come out. And I think we can take a look at this, but, and I did a total, but just for context, these increases would result in about an annual increase of the, again, average residential user of $31 a year. So not to dismiss the increase in cost, but just to put it in context.
Sewer.
Sewer. Again, it's an overall rate increase of 11%. Again, we needed a 7% increase to balance the fund, along with some fund balance use, which I'll address in a minute. And then we added a 4% to defray future debt burden. So again, that is an additional deposit into the capital reserve fund. So if you look at the CIP plan, it would be that amount plus this additional deposit where you would see the deposit to the capital reserve fund within the budget. We did, this budget is proposing use of fund balance of about $312,000 that allows us to keep the rate increase similar to the water rate increase. And even with that usage, we result in a fund balance for the sewer fund of just under 30%. So That's a very healthy. For the average residential user, this increase will equate to about $40 a year.
Is that for the study?
Not for the study, but for the improvements in capital investments.
Ambulance?
Ambulance, I don't have too much to address. It is the same budget that was presented in January. We haven't made any changes to that.
Yep, okay. And the undesignated fund balance is at 10%, which is fine.
Yes, yep,
Okay.
yeah.
And parking.
Okay, for parking, so when the parking team presented their budget, they presented two different budgets, and that's what we're reflecting here. So the budget in the first column is their zero-based budgeting and does not include the proposed transition from their AIMS software suite to IPS, or Integrated Parking Solutions. So the additional column scenario basically is adding the cost of that software into the budget and offsetting it with additional use of fund balance and again, it's capturing the one-time investments of transitioning to that. And I think, Rob, I don't know if you want to comment. I think that the new software does put us in a position to strategically look at the parking pricing, and I think you were in on that meeting.
So the current software AIMS does not allow us to do progressive pricing, free time windows. It doesn't allow us to go to an unstaffed parking garage. The IPS system creates the opportunity for us to do this. Some of it requires kiosk upgrades. We don't have, right now we have a gated system at the garage. So there are opportunities here that will have cost savings down the line and create dynamic pricing options that we're trying to address to figure out how best to utilize our parking spaces, drive people to the parking garage, free up Main Street parking, some of it's not used for all-day parking, those types of things. We currently can't.
Make that back with 3 event days.
3 event days.
How many home games? 6?
Yeah. We have 6 a year, and then, yeah, we don't charge for the hockey yet. Maybe. They're really coming for hockey lately.
I was there. It was good. It was a really good game.
Yeah.
So this, the difference in undesignated fund balance use between the 69,816 and the 114,908, which one was in the first thing that you presented?
That's the 69. So it
69,
is the
Extra 45.
it's an extra 45,000 of expense and undesignated fund balance use. And with that usage, the undesignated fund balance percentage would be roughly 14.6. So, and again, as a non-fire or general fund, the guidelines are 5%. So even with that use of fund balance, we're well within the comfort zone.
So, what's the sense of the select board and or the recommendation of the town manager?
I'm recommending moving to IPS and using the second column budget.
Just trying to follow up on the water, just like if you're concerned about water and you haven't gotten your new meter yet, the Ion Water app just sent us an alert this morning that said, looks like you have a drip. And sure enough, Puppy didn't turn off the shower.
Actually, I should download that right now.
It's a great thing. Get your meter changed if you haven't yet and download the app
What's it called?
Eye on Water.
Oh, like
You need your.
Yeah, like, I'm gonna watch you water.
EYE.
I think so, yeah.
So I'm getting the sense IPS, yes, yes, Jenny, yes, yeah, okay, all right. Good. Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome. Thank Ellen. She's been carrying the load tonight.
Yes, thank you, Alan. Any other schedules we should go through?
You know, I don't think so for now, unless there are questions. You know, again, the undesignated fund balance schedules have been discussed and referenced tonight with different scenarios. I think that the one that we are presenting for here for the general fund again did have all of those uses of fund balance. And again, you can see the 15.6% remaining. I think that it was sort of interwoven with the conversation, but I'm happy to answer any questions as on the designated fund balances.
Okay, questions? Thank you for putting in the schedule of indebtedness, the last schedule. And I'm just wondering on that, if you could, for maybe next time, add a few more years, because it seems like the balances are going to drop significantly. I didn't quite do the math, but could you add a few more years?
I can. I actually have a schedule that goes out to, I don't know, 2045.
Oh, wow, okay.
It's just a little bit difficult to share. Actually, it goes out to 2053. Because what I've done is I've taken the proposed debt, both those, the two bonds that were approved for water and wastewater, and then the additional projects that are both in the CIP plan and are proposed. So I can certainly share that document.
Thank you.
So get back to CIPC. We did get a spreadsheet from Pete Coe back very late in our process. And I noticed that it does actually have an additional 7 bridges for fiscal year 34, which isn't that far out, that we somehow had completely missed. So I just wanted to make sure that those got added into the tally, because those were something we weren't aware of.
Follow up on 7 bridges. Okay.
Yes, seven bridges, yes.
All right. Let's move on. Thank you very much, Alan. Next up is South Main Street. Or do we want to do our warrant articles and then let Ellen go, or what's your pleasure?
I'll stay for.
Yeah.
I'll stay for South.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's move on to South Main Street. Rob, thank you for putting in the FAQs, the cost estimate, the design. Do you want to,
I'll tee this up
Yep.
relatively quickly.
Yep.
And I'll bring the concept up. So what our goal was to have this all done and ready for prime time in just late December, early January. We discovered that the data we thought we had for current base information was not available, so Bowman had to spend several months generating that data. You can see that in the sheets that they provided with the existing conditions plan. And from the public input session and the online survey, staff, myself, Pete, met with Bowman to review what we've discovered. What we discovered is that the right of way we thought we had, we don't have. In that the current diagonal parking on both sides of the street are deficient from a safety engineering standard. That's why vehicles stick out so far into the travelway and why cars have to cross into the oncoming lane to go down Main Street when larger vehicles are there. So the directive we gave Bowman was to maximize parking based on the feedback we received, and design a system that addresses the safety engineering standards that we need to apply in the reconstruction of the street. What we ended up with is the design that's on the website. My plan is to take this show to the public in the next 2 to 3 weeks, present it to the CIPC at their next meeting. And as you see in the budget, a request to take this to construction drawing stage so that we can have the ability to bid this in advance of the warrant for next year. And meaning that we would have a guaranteed price for construction. What we do have is a 30% construction cost estimate, and we're still on target for under $15 million with a $2 million contingency in the budget.
$115 million?
15 million.
15.
Yeah.
Did I say 150?
You said 100, yeah.
I was drowning in that tidal wave.
15 million. So
Yeah.
we're on target, what we flagged this at. And what you see on the screen does include diagonal back in diagonal parking. However, I instructed the design team to ensure that we can go either direction. And we are planning to do a pilot of the back in diagonal where we have the width, which is in front of the Nugget and the Nugget Arcade, so that we can test it to see if it's appropriate for Hanover. We know it works. It's safer all around for all users.
What's safer?
Back in diagonal.
Diagonal, yeah.
You're either backing in or you're backing out. And when you're pulling out, the safest place for the driver is to be looking at oncoming traffic.
It's the backup. You're supposed to be looking at the backup cam.
So in a nutshell, what was sacrificed? I'll start with the bike lanes were eliminated, and the diagonal parking on the east side of the street. We do have a loss of parking that's required to maintain the exact same curb line that we have for most everywhere. We do lose a little curb line from Town Hall to accommodate the.
Is it gonna impact the tree?
Yes.
Oh, can we just have like a bulb out? Oh, that's like the best tree in town.
We haven't solved for that. We're at 30%. And that's why we're gonna go to the public.
Are you talking about where, because I know there's other trees too that are gone. Like, I think the way some people are really concerned about parking, some other people are really concerned about trees.
Yep.
So I think it's really clear, like
We show.
whatever options are showed has to be like super straightforward about what these trade-offs are.
So the other, yes, thank you. The other major changes are relocation of the crosswalk from Allen, from a true mid-block crossing. Using 2 driveways as tip downs is unsafe and inappropriate. It shortens the crossing. It'll move it north over its current location, and you can see it.
Any comments along the way? Because I had a question about
Sure.
that, like, seems like a very nice pedestrianized area. Why not extend it to include the intersection at Allen where people have the right of way to cross and will be crossing? Like, make it.
I mean, extend the crosswalk so that it's like.
Yeah, like a wide, like that one, but over there. Yeah. I just feel like people are still gonna cross at Allen if you have the right of way as pedestrian, and now it'll be actually easier because there won't be a bunch of cars right there that you're walking through.
We'll say.
Just a thought.
Yep,
I think that.
great.
I know there,
So
I have questions about the bus stop.
the new one on the north side? Yeah, there's a proposed bus stop on the north side. Pink route and the blue route are two routes that currently don't have a stop on North Main Street. And the current designated stop is at the post office, which is not an ideal location.
So is that post off, what, would that drop then?
Yeah.
And what about on the southern bit, so there's a CVS one.
The southern one at
Like heading
Circle
south.
K would stay there. That's a call stop.
When you go like this.
Yeah, well, if there's a person standing there, it's
Yeah.
stopped, but if you're on the bus.
That would love a shelter as well. I see that one used a lot. but-
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm just cognizant that we're 3 hours in, we have half a dozen items and a non-public. So we have like at least an hour in front of us. We need
Right, this is when we're talking about this, or no?
Well,
Or should we be talking about it some other time?
well, we do have, you mentioned a couple of opportunities, CIPC being one, the second being
Right.
where we'll discuss this.
I
in
just
more
wanna
detail.
say, like, so I really appreciate there's a ton of trade-offs that have to happen and that there's a bunch of walkability. My concern is really about future-proofing this design. Like, we know autonomous vehicles are coming, we know we just wanna be flexible in the future. We know whatever, e-bikes save 4 times more carbon than e-cars in the United States already. There are 250,000 autonomous vehicles on the road in New Hampshire. There's one being tested in Lebanon last year by Tesla. And New Hampshire has actually bans the prohibition of testing autonomous vehicles here. So we know they're coming. And I just want to be cognizant that where we're putting like tree wells and where we're putting curbs, that we have that flexibility in the future if we want to change how we're utilizing the curb, or if we want to rethink how people are moving about. And part of that is I'm always thinking like we know protected bike lanes, people will ride their bikes in them and they'll scoot in them. What if people are still sidewalk riding with this design, right? Where is our flexibility?
So the team, Bowman and I and Pete, discussed a lot of these future proofing issues. And, I've been known to say things like, we don't design a bridge based on the number of people swimming across the river. We also need to figure out how behavior changes. So if we see a shift in the way behavior is occurring and we no longer need parking, the parallel parking on the east side can be eliminated. The path goes back in. All of those things can start to occur. We've looked at that as an, future proofing as an option. The issue for me is I can't design something that's unsafe. I won't do it. Pete won't do it. Your public works director is a PE. He's held to certain standards. We need to make sure we do this to the safety standards that we need to adhere to. So I welcome your feedback, Jenny. We can do this here.
I hope you're not suggesting that I'm suggesting that we design something that's unsafe.
No.
I'm really just looking at those tree wells and saying like, maybe they don't want to be right up against the curb. Maybe they want to be in a line, or, maybe because if we plant a great tree, maybe we want to keep it, stuff like that. Some other general ideas that I'm glad you landed here over by the Circle K. We have some really serious sidewalk needs that are sort of cut out of the Circle K. Like generally this side of Main Street, which I think is, really important. We have our whole Muskoma Bank complex, Johnson Audiology, we have Sushi-ya. I would love for this to get some of that, like more love, basically. Like, why is this not raised? why can't we have crosswalk on all four corners? I know it's a little tricky with the way the gas station and the CVS and the other stuff is there, but I think now is the time to address these concerns. And similarly, like, you know, we have this very long-standing problem over at the middle school where the bike lane ends in a curb. We should make sure we have a way that addresses the safety concerns rather than sort of cements it when we're looking at this problem. And then similarly, it's South and Main. That's a really important crossing, and I'm not sure why that's not getting the love of being a raised crossing. And of all the places, like, I don't know that we need a dedicated right turn lane. We don't have one there now. I'm not sure why we would add that on the southbound lane. When we could just have like a nice fold out, we could have more garden for more seating, and I know it's just a Verizon store right now, but who knows what it'll be in the future. I know people turn during the walk sign right now into people, like in the path of people crossing. And I think this would, adding a turn lane there where there isn't one is not gonna make that better. I just don't think we need a turn lane. I don't think we have the volumes in that direction.
Can we,
But
I think these are some really good points. Can we maybe have a work session on this
Sure. Yes.
instead of,
yeah, I think that's a great idea. I just,
so let's, I mean,
Yeah.
let's.
I just don't
take this
think
up.
that's I think that'd be great. Yeah.
All right,
Can we,
thank
so
you
we
for
can
that.
come back to it just because.
Yeah, I just don't think that work session is at the CIPC and say, are
No,
feeling.
no, I agree.
So-
I'm saying it's a standalone, any, you know, maybe it's some of the select boards, bike walk, whatever, that we should have a work session going through this as part of, I mean, there's public outreach. But I don't think we should do it because there's too much left on the.
Well, I know there's a lot on the agenda, but this is like the one and only time it's at the select board, and I think Bill came, he said in the beginning to talk, like, I don't.
Yeah, no, I think Bill should talk. I'm just saying that perhaps we don't do all of your items, that we take it offline.
Yeah. That's great.
So,
Okay, did you,
Yes, my name is Bill Young. I'm a resident of Hanover and also on the Bike Walk Committee. And I learned a beatitude that blessed are the brief, they may be re-invited. So I will not talk very much, but three quick things. One, it's been phenomenal. So thank you for being here. I mean, you're here 3 hours tonight, but you're here many, many nights like this. And it's just great that you provide this service to the town. The second is this is wonderful, but I don't understand it yet, and it's a little different than the things that I've seen. And I think it came as a surprise to Rob and some others that the details of planning had to be relooked at compared to the models that the Bike Walk Committee had looked at for the past several years, I think. So that's the second. I would again sort of say that if someone can come to the Bike Walk Advisory Committee just to educate us, that would be wonderful. And I'm not sure whether that would be whether from consultants or town planners, that would be very, very helpful. And the second is I think this will require and benefit by having a significant amount of public education to sell it to the community. And I'm offering my own personal thing to stand on a soapbox and have a flip chart and try to explain this to people when the time comes after being educated by the staff here about what you want to say. But I think this is going to be complicated and if there comes to a vote, people really want to know what's going on. And so that's all. Thank you for being here and I'll stay tuned. Thanks.
thank you, Bill. Thank you, appreciate that. All right, so major takeaway here is much more on SMS, South Main Street to come.
MS,
With SMS, yeah, it's just, everything's an
The
acronym.
acronym
Yeah.
came from the CIP.
come on.
I think I was influenced by Christine. Everything's an acronym.
Okay, fine.
All right, with the indulgence of the board, I'd like to move on to the warrant articles for consideration at the public hearing, which we're going to set momentarily, hopefully. Hold that, Rob, thank you.
So in addition to the standard, and some of them I've put here, The Howe Library would be a CRF appropriation. Funds are in the account already. The multi-use path on Reservoir Road, I've shrunk it, I've shortened it. Yes, wow. I've shortened it to terminate at Curtis because the landowner, the trail that would extend onto has not consented to it, and two, the funds that we're tapping cannot be used for work outside the right of way. So, and three, it was tied to the Girl Brook path, which doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
So the effort is to shrink it. The number you have here is to build the path. From this roundabout to Curtis with a crossing. And Pete has updated the cost and that's reflected here.
I actually think that's a good thing. And
It's a little bit like, it adds up to 400. Oops.
So when it goes to Lime Road, it will there be
A crossing,
across Lime Road as well?
yes. South of the circle crossing.
That's good, because people cross there.
Yep.
And they get kind of
especially with
caught, they get
skiing.
caught out.
Yep.
And then, is it still at like 10 foot?
Yes.
And then, yeah, and then no clearing is super important around there because otherwise it's not usable in the winter, like the.
Like not plowed. Winter.
Well, there's like a little sidewalk, but it's currently not usable in the winter because it just is super little.
Oh, you mean on the roundabout side?
Yeah,
On
and just like if all the Fort Sayre kids, if you want them
Southeast
to
corner.
actually
Yes,
cross,
southeast
if you want them to cross where
safe.
it's safe, there has to be stuff.
But we have to design it, right? This is just a
Yeah.
concept, so,
So
yeah.
this is just the warrant article. So the tower truck.
Tower truck, as presented at the fire department's budget, the tower truck is due to be replaced in 2030. It's a 3-year build. It's $2.4 million, and we need to authorize this in 2027 so that we can have it delivered within the 25-year mark of the tower truck.
Not cheap, 2.4 million. Yep.
We're gone up by $1 million.
I had a question though about the reservoir multi path. Will this then include the raised crossing that was proposed at Curtis?
Don't know if it's a raised crossing, but it'll be a full crossing with rapid flashing beacons.
Yeah, I think there was, well, that was in Pete's plan at the CIPC.
And it's in the plan that it's here.
Okay.
It's a raised table.
Like, I think it's maybe important to put in the warrant article, because that would be important to making that area safe to cross.
No, you don't need that. You don't need that detailed for the warrant article in terms of getting the money out. CRF. It happens.
Onto the non-budgetary warrant article.
Yes.
The first one is that as the board may know, that you've tasked me with trying to create cell coverage. We haven't hired anyone. We've reached out to a tower company, Green Mountain Communications. They've analyzed all of our buildings. They've analyzed all of our public spaces. They've analyzed school properties. And they believe that the property at 221 Lebanon Street is suitable for a 160-foot tower. That tower would provide 5G coverage for downtown and 5G coverage of a portion of Greensboro Road. For those who don't know, 5G is about a 2.5-mile radius around the tower. The nearest tower that covers the town currently is on the smokestack at the hospital, which is a little bit more than 4 miles away. So We're looking to do a lease agreement with them. I'm seeking authorization to allow the select board to negotiate with this tower company or any other tower company for leasehold for up to 20 years renewable in 5-year increments after that. That's the concept here. Without the leasehold, we're not going to get a tower. CPACER authorization is a commercial, it's a loan program that allows properties to be liened by the town to guarantee a loan for energy efficiency for commercial properties. The town's obligation would be to lien the properties that are approved for the loan and to deed those properties if they are deficient in the loan.
If they default on them.
And if they default on the loan. There's no other obligation to the town. We've already had interest in CPACER by at least 2 entities. One is the co-op. So we're seeking an endorsement of this. I will point out that the town of Hanover was the first community in 2016 to adopt CPACE. It never materialized into any projects because it was so complicated back then. And the final one, which is still a potential, and I'm waiting for feedback from the downtown business group, and that is the social district authorization. So as you may know, remember the state of New Hampshire's passed legislation that would enable communities to create social districts that would allow liquor containers and alcohol consumption on public lands in that district, provided it was sold by participants and it's properly marked. It can be for a specific events or for a duration. This just simply is the enabling legislation to authorize the select board to create an ordinance that would adopt social districts. Oh no.
What defines the participant? Like operating a business within this district or a participant of the town or?
So it would be in the district, there need to be special costs that are properly marked. Bear with me. We've been going at it too long. So the social districts, there's 2 under Konya and Concord are the 2 communities that have currently been authorized to have received approval to create social districts. They're in the ordinance construction phase currently. This doesn't obligate us. This creates the opportunity to do something like Summerfest and have live band and alcohol sales and consumption out on the sidewalk, or another event, or some, you know.
What do you need from the downtown group?
Do you want it?
Just tell me what you need, I'll get it.
My question, the goal is to make sure that we have proper backing from the downtown businesses before I put this out there. I certainly don't want to float an idea of a social district if the majority of the merchants are opposed to it.
Gotcha. I will get you a.
It's only time sensitive if there's a desire to move forward in fiscal year 27 for the creation of the ordinance.
And to work with like Ledger Park and all that stuff. Sorry, did you explain the participants? I didn't quite understand.
So the ordinance would call out the boundary, the vendors who participate.
So the vendors would all be within that boundary? Like, could you?
Licensed alcohol, licensed to sell alcohol at their current establishment. They would be a participant in the. No.
Like, could they be a pop-up or only if they're like through an existing business?
It would not be a pop-up because the way, well, I should say, the state of New Hampshire does allow for one-off annually. for alcohol sales, but this is traditionally targeting existing bricks and mortar establishments to participate in the program. I'm not.
And then the ordinance would
be more
specific about whatever bathrooms or other things.
And again, this doesn't do anything but authorize the town to develop it. We don't have an obligation to develop it, but without the authorization, we can't.
Lebanon just voted against it, right?
Did they vote against it?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I saw it was on there.
Yeah,
thing.
I think Lebanon put it on their ballot.
yeah, and I don't know if I thought they,
Is it clear from, if we just look at it, it should be clear that it doesn't actually enact the ordinance, that it just allows for the established.
I will make sure that the
Yeah.
language is.
The language is clear, just not obvious that way.
More warrant articles in the works.
Not at this time.
Next time, yeah, okay, all right.
Setting aside for a moment anything that comes out of planning
Right, and all the budgetary
and
articles.
all of the standard budgetary.
Yeah.
Petition, are those done?
Petition warrant articles aren't due yet. For zoning, yes, they're done. They're
Zoning.
And there's the deadline for other petitions.
Okay, unless there's anything else on that, we have business requiring action. I'd like to move on to setting a public hearing. Motion language is in the packet. I need a reader, a seconder.
I move to set a public hearing on the FY 27 budget and warrant articles on March 30th, 2026 at 7 p.m. and if needed on April 6th, 2026 at 7 p.m.
Second. Okay. Conversation? All those in favor?
I
Thank you.
did B, C.
Okay, we have done B, so let's move on to C. Proposal to establish workforce housing task force. We discussed this once before. This is the second reading. There were amendments to the document that Rob took at the urging of the select board. Thank you for that, Rob. Questions about this amended document?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the establishment of a select board advisory committee titled Workforce Housing Task Force and to adopt the charge, mission, objectives, membership, and operating parameters detailed in second reading of proposal.
Okay, we're gonna see the hands in the audience. I'm gonna take a second. Okay, the motion is made, but let's go forward with questions before we take a vote.
Amy Hawk, Hanover. And I just wanted to say, I definitely commend the town on trying to address workforce housing and the focus on trying to do density in urban areas as opposed to rural sprawl. I think setting up a task force is needed and is a great idea. My one concern is that one of the stated objectives of the task force is to come up with kind of a replicable plan to, look at how to do workforce housing and how to do it in other places around town. That the idea was sort of this pilot study focusing at Mink Brook. And I have concerns about the efficacy of using the 5-acre parcel there as a template for future projects because of other constraints that are associated with that parcel. One being that some of the numbers that are talked about for housing there are threefold increase over what was approved at town meeting when that parcel was first determined to be pulled out, those 5-acre. And the other issue is that there's so many constraints. There's a lot of constraints associated with development of that parcel. Some of those 5 acres incorporate wetlands. And with the funding that went into purchasing the Mink Brook Community Forest from groups such as the Connecticut River Mitigation Fund, there's a lot of very strict and very specific requirements on protection of wetlands, riparian buffers, and other constraints that are associated with that parcel. So I'm not sure that it really serves as a great place to develop your plan on how to move forward on
doing workforce housing because it's going to be kind of a unique situation in that there's all these other restrictions and constraints associated with that parcel that you may not find at other places around town. So I just, I like everything about what you're doing with housing, but I kind of question that as being the place to really figure out the plan because it's just got so many unique kind of qualifying restrictions and stuff associated with it.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
As a planner for many years, every parcel that's left in Hanover has unique and qualifying issues. And I think that part of this will be to, hey, make sure you're looking into all of these things and asking those questions at other places around town that are on town water, town sewer. And this is actually on a state highway. So I think that it is transferable. If we make sure that we're asking all the questions and, what we have to do to mitigate development at this 5-acre site may not transfer to other locations, but I think we need to ask all the questions and make sure that we're, looking at every parcel with the same rigor and addressing the issues that you've raised. And I think you've raised a lot of good ones. So.
Do you envision having anyone from the Conservation Commission involved in that if you do want to address things like wetlands and riparian and
I think that's all part of the development process, is that making sure that we have the right people looking at the issues associated with development, with workforce housing, with housing development in general. Yeah. So thank you.
Thanks, Amy. All right.
So I looked at the proposal for tonight, and I very much appreciate that it specifically mentions abiding by the right to know law and that there should be outward facing updates, et cetera. But I know that it's very easy to just say those words on paper. But if you don't have specifics, then a lot of times that just doesn't rise to the priority of, what needs to be done. So I guess I would like to ask if you would consider adding to that section on outward facing updates to specifically say that there should be 2 public, presentations, workshops, sort of one at the beginning of the work so that they make sure that they've gotten all of the community concerns. And then another one, because there's also the thing about the decision ready, design for the select board. And I think, like when you have those 2, it would be really good to go back to the community and say, does this meet the needs? Because if they're presenting a decision ready to you, then that really sounds like, the opportunity for more input is stymied until it gets to the planning board. And I have to say, at one point in this process, it was pointed out that there'd have to be 2 public hearings, one at the planning board and one at the zoning board of adjustments. But because of a change in zoning, that second one will not have to happen anymore because it's no longer by special exception, but just a listed use. So I would like to ask that you consider specifically charging the committee with having two community meetings, essentially. This project, you've had sort of a discussion here, but there was, again, the time constraints. There really hasn't otherwise been a community meeting where people from the community can just go and say what they care about. I would hope that even if it doesn't make it into these guidelines, that you do think a little bit more about giving direction to this group. I know when this whole process started that Julia made the representation that it would be a net zero housing development. Has that completely been lost? If you think that that's something that should be in there, I would hope that you would communicate that to this new task force. There's also been the concern that that parcel now is what gives the public access to those parcels with the parking there. Does the parking for the public need to be in in the design feature or not. So I guess I feel that there's a couple of key questions that, you know, it's really sort of up to the select board to give a little bit more direction than at least what is here now. And I hope that you have a process where you think about those questions and you give direction so that the task force looks at things that, you know, you yourselves consider to be important.
Thanks.
Thank you. Please.
Yeah, Joe Bachman. You've heard from me before, so I'll be brief. Appreciate the opportunity to address select board this evening. I'm looking at the second draft. I have to say it was very hard to find this online, sifting through. And I had several of my neighbors along Greensboro Road here tonight. They too have had trouble sort of engaging on this. I think that's one of those Kari's points. There needs to be more access to have this sort of discussion, something that will change the character of a neighborhood and of an ecological value. And that was a commitment that's been made at this board before. I'm disappointed to see the primary objective of the task force is to determinately proceed with this development on 110 Greensboro, to the point that all questions must be asked of all these different parcels. Let's get the process in place and then let's apply the process to everything. Fundamentally, it's a very difficult parcel to develop. I've cited concerns ecologically before. As a forester, there are obligations of the town to the federal government, given the money used to purchase this forest, to apply management. From having been there, having walked it iteratively and knowing it well, I don't see how that obligation can be met if you put a housing development there. Logging trucks coming through that parcel itself, access to the state road, also public safety from just having a housing development there on one of the apexes of that S-curve. You know, I could go on, but I won't. But I think that before the select board says this is what we're doing, this is the priority of this task force, then you must have a pretty good idea of the constraints. And there's many people concerned. I also take issue with how some of these things have been described in the FAQs online. In this draft here at the back that was added apparently since the first reading, you know, it cites the 5-acre parcel. Originally that was to be a 4-acre parcel. I don't know how 4 acres becomes 5. How that survey happens just coincidentally to meet a threshold to increase the units. There's a lot of concerns here procedurally as well. So I'm raising them now. There's enough people concerned will be raised again. So I'd urge you to recast this to have a more general approach to creating a task force to address the noble cause of providing affordable housing. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Okay. Thank you. Okay, we've heard some comments. This is the second reading. I'm looking to the board to see if there's an appetite to revise this document, perhaps to mandate 2 sessions of community input and increase select board direction. Also hearing a suggestion that the Greensboro Road site not be a priority. Is there any with respect to moving forward on this this document at this time? Would select board members like to go forward, amend, or delay?
I was thinking of what, when Amy was talking about the transferable, that maybe a more appropriate word would be framework. I think the intent is to understand all the constraints of all the properties.
As Joe mentioned, I mean, there's a lot of constraints that were tied to the initial funding that you're not gonna have on other
Yeah, that's
properties. I mean,
100% true.
We have wetlands and trees and,
Yeah.
those issues, but these are very specific requirements from the,
Yeah,
the government, from the conservation.
And in that framework, just like any property that has easements or underground cistern, or whatever, there's always something crazy.
It's probably not gonna be developed.
But all kinds of properties come forward at the planning board, and there's a process to go and evaluate them all. But I think the point that, yes, it's not like directly transferable to another property is taken, and that wasn't really. I was thinking maybe it's like a word choice that's like messing up the
This is really
intent.
drilling, this is just, the whole thing seems very 90% focused on that 110 Greensboro Road, that's the objective.
I think because we have a mandate from town meeting to develop workforce housing on this cycle.
But that was for, I don't know, 5 to 8 homes, and now there's talk of 30. So that's a very different.
Kind of like Barrel Farms
mandate.
right?
No, I mean, the stuff that we've seen about this, there's been discussion of applying the new zoning overlay.
Numbers.
And that it could go up to, looking at 30 units there, which is pretty hard to envision. And that wasn't what was voted on for the town meeting. Or supported at town meeting. Wasn't that kind of a scale of the development. And if that's the scale of development we're really trying to do for workforce housing, if just doing, 4 small cottages out there doesn't really, to drop in the bucket for what the need is, how is that a template that you're going to apply in other places where you need to be doing more, like what Dartmouth did out across from Sachem, where they put in, I don't know how many units, there's a lot of units they put in on that property. To me, that's a better template than what you could do at Mink Brook.
The purpose of this task force is to look at what we have, look at the constraints, and come up with a plan. I don't see a negative aspect of proceeding with what we've got in front of us. And we should get the task force up and running, see what they come up with. It's an advisory task force. They're not binding us to anything. And we've delayed this so long that it's losing steam. Well, the reason it's been delayed is for, Rob knows this so intimately, it's for funding reasons, not other, because of differences in definitions of workforce versus affordable. Thank you. I couldn't think of the other term. It's not for no other reason than that. And we need to get this thing moving. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is.
And I think there's no question that community input is going to be a part of this process. I mean,
I'm trying to find my notes from the last meeting we had, Joe. I can't remember the date of that. We had that big meeting here and the room was full. I took such good notes from that. I'm trying to find it. Here it is. October 16th, 2023. Whit was the first person who spoke. Jeff, the usual folks, Jeff Acker. Trying to find you here, Joe. I don't see you.
Well, I wasn't there because.
Oh, you're out of town. You're out of town. I remember.
To participate.
I remember.
You gave me 1 week notice and I had a 6-month plan.
I apologize. You and I had a discussion.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we had a discussion on the phone before that. It seems like a lot of folks did show up and were pretty, had a lot of, I can give people my notes, but we can also look at the tape. But I think we need to move forward. I mean, we can't delay this anymore.
okay.
I agree that the mission of this is pretty clearly to advise the select board on financially responsible and scalable strategies to increase the supply of workforce housing. I think there will be public input. I think there has been a ton, and I think having a group of people that's going to really look at this and figure out what we're able to do in a sustainable fashion with the constraints and restraints that are in place. I think we should just keep it as it is.
I made the motion.
Yeah, okay. In the motion, you're sticking with the motion.
You can vote against it.
I know, but I mean, there's no way we can take this without having public feedback. I feel,
Yeah.
I feel that this is, get the task force up and running. Let the half a dozen or 5 people or however many people are on it get to work.
And
Because we
whatever's
haven't had time.
proposed still has to survive. The
Yeah.
Planning board,
Yeah.
New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. I think there's
The select board.
select board. There's so many more
And
So
town meeting.
and yeah, town meeting and town meeting.
So
Town
this is
meeting,
gonna be,
so-
yes.
It actually doesn't have to survive.
We had a survey up as well. We were taking comments and we do now have a Zoom participation option. So if you do find yourself out of town and able to connect, that is another way.
We have a hand raised online.
Okay, let's go there.
Rich, unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the board.
I guess that's me. Can you hear me?
very well.
I want to say 2 things. First, you guys absolutely need to have a budget for the Conservation Commission.
We're
I'm
fine.
on the,
It's
I'm on
done.
the,
That's done, Rich.
That's done.
Move on, Rich.
that's that, okay. The other thing is that you need to look at what Julia Griffin said at the Hanover town meeting in 2020 about how many homes and what kinds of homes would be allowed, with the arrangement that moved forward. And we need to get beyond the idea that what she said was that there would be 29 housing units. Yeah, and you need to actually bring the community together, which has not didn't happen under Alex Torpy. It's not happening now. The select board, the town manager, planning board, there's not been a lot of community engagement. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Rich. Okay,
These are all, everybody's saying reasonable things.
yes,
We need to get this.
yes. All right, motion has been made. We're ready to vote?
Did you want to change anything, Jenny?
I would just change it to repeatable framework rather than transferable. I just think it's a little confusing. Given that we all know every parcel is very different.
Okay,
So,
repeatable framework.
I'll take that as a friendly. amendment.
yeah, it's a
That's
friend-
fine.
yeah.
Is that
I think
okay with
it
everyone?
means- I think it's just trying to.
Transferable, like getting rid of that word is fine.
Everyone okay with that? Sure. Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you for the input. We do listen, we do hear you. We're gonna move forward. All right. Let's move on to this item, which is net metering, ensuring long-term values. This is a letter in support of SB 538. You've actually, I think, signed this letter, so I'm taking that as a sign of support, but we do need a motion.
Trying to find it. Oh, I got it.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't, yeah, you're missing some words here. I move to approve.
To authorize and sign.
The sentence doesn't make sense.
Will you do this?
I'm sure.
A letter. The letter.
Okay, I move to approve and to authorize and to sign a letter to the New Hampshire State Energy and Natural Resources Committee in support of Senate Bill 538, ensuring long-term value for municipal renewable energy projects. Sorry, Rob, I apologize.
Is there a second?
There's too many ands.
Johanna seconds. Are there any, is there any discussion around this?
To omit the second and third and. Just kidding.
Yeah, okay. Not seeing any, I'm gonna call a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. And C-PACER. Recommended motion is I move to approve and endorse the proposed warrant article for commercial property assessed clean energy resiliency, C-PACER. We have discussed this already.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of items by consent. We have draft minutes from the February 23rd meeting, banner and light pole requests, and we have donations. Can we take this as a consensus item or any items that select board members wish to pull out?
None.
Okay.
What's the motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Gratitude.
I get to read.
Yes, okay. Right.
We wish to thank to the donations to the Etna Library, Jerry and Pat Welcome, pronouncing that correctly, $100. The Etna Ladies Aid, $250 given in memory of Ron the Bombard, The Hanover Garden Club, $50 gift certificate. Johnny's Selected Seeds, wow, that's cool, for Etna Library's Seed Library. Monday Wilson, $150 for the Etna Library Seed Library. And Julia Wyborn, $100. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Anything from the town manager before we move to select board reports? Oh, okay, select board reports.
No.
Garrett.
Well, excuse me, I missed the Conservation Commission meeting. Jenny, were you there?
Yeah, they did the budget.
Okay.
No,
Jared was talking.
You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the downtown group had a meeting. Still, we're about 30% there on the Ledyard Park fundraising. We're about to kind of kick that off into high gear to do more fundraising and try and get to 100%. And that's really it.
Joanna?
I don't think I have a trust fund meeting. It's April 15th.
Okay.
There's a sustainability meeting that I missed. There was a presentation by some students.
Right, I missed the presentation.
Bye, Tracy.
I didn't.
Thank you.
I thought they were good.
I heard they were good. There's a newsletter that speaks about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing.
I was present. Okay, there is a Hanover Finance
Do you want
Committee
to say
meeting on
anything to them?
Thursday, 4:00. Just report, Jenny.
Well, the Conservation Commission is really, thinking ahead of figuring out how they can map things for their larger ecological look at things. And Amy's leading an ArcGIS project. They're also had a guy in who can kill invasives mechanically, and previously they had somebody else who can kill invasives with glyphosate. So that's a hot topic there. Because they want to deal with the knotweed on
Glyphosate?
glyphosate.
Glyphosate. So that's you need
Probable
to have.
carcinogen.
Yeah.
But not confirmed carcinogen. Yeah, to deal with the knotweed at Farfield. That was really a lot of the discussion. What? Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah, it was super interesting to learn about how the knotweed reacts to various stresses. From somebody who really, knows plants. In Hanover Bike Walk, we had a presentation from a Dartmouth grad student who had done some research on why people bike or don't bike in the Upper Valley. It wasn't like super far reaching, but it had a good variety of people who were either grad students or older people from basically overlapping social groups from the aquatic center, just various people. And more people had bikes than I would have expected, and more people don't ride because they don't find it safe than I would have expected. But so that was just really interesting to hear her reason, because she had asked really in-depth questions, and
Where did
we
she get the
haven't.
data from?
A survey. It's like a comprehensive survey. We posted it on.
I think I filled it out.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I can show you the questions. Maybe you were one of the respondents.
Yeah.
it was really interesting. I had not seen the survey previously, and I haven't seen anything about our area. It was consistent with other surveys that I've seen nationally. And I guess you just always wonder, like, oh, is it different here? Because people are pretty sporty here, pretty, intrepid. But that was really interesting. What else do we? Oh, the planning board is dealing with the zoning amendments for the warrant. So they'll have a meeting on March 24th. Is that right?
They're meeting tonight.
Yeah, they're meeting tonight about the definition of family. And then they're meeting, I think it's the 24th, about zoning amendment proposals that would then come to us. Yeah.
Thank you, Jen. All right, we do have need for a non-public, and we need
I move that we move into non-public session to discuss items pursuant to RSA 91:1:3, Roman numeral 2, A, B, D, E, L. A, B, D, E, L. Gracias, yes.
we need a second.
Oh, yeah.
I second. Burke, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Yes.
Chamberlain, yeah.
All right, we are in non-public. All right.
Second.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, Carrie. Kari.
All right.
Thank you.
Sit next to a Carrie.
Yeah,
Look at a Kari.
I actually called Carrie once.
So,
Happens.